What is happening out there, Rotoscouts baseball fans? Good to see you, gang. Happy Friday. Welcome to a big Friday slate breakdown. Should be a good one to talk through. Hope your day's going well out there. Feeling a little, just can't wait to get into this one. I don't know. It's one of those, sometimes you just got to click the go live button type days for me. I was sitting here trying to figure out everything I had situated, make sure I had all the pieces together. Just had to click go live and jump on and just start talking about this one. 13-gamer, monster slate. A couple really interesting looking spots, deep pitching board to work with. A lot going on. Say hi to some folks first, though. A couple people here already. Cujo's here. Wayne Stark is here. Wayne says, I'm on time today. I still can't understand how this is the only channel that doesn't give me a notification. I don't know. I don't want to mean anything by putting it this way, but I think that's a you thing, Wayne. I think it's on your side. Maybe did you accidentally mute the notification somehow or something like that? Because everybody else does seem to be getting it. So I'm not sure what that might be, but I'd love to help you out if I could. I just don't know what the answer could possibly be unless it's just, accidentally muted. But yeah, weird one. Follow the @Rotoscouts Twitter handle. I do try and send up a notification whenever I remember. Anyway, I just did it like 2 minutes ago, but I do try and send up a note on Twitter. I think you mentioned the other day though you're not on Twitter, so yeah, somebody help Wayne out. Somebody out there's got to know how to fix this problem. That's silly that it would just be us that you get notifications from other ones. Anyway, let's start here. Just while people walk in the door. Just our updated scoreboard. Ignore this. This is already reflected over here. This is just a repeat of that. Take that off there. So this is our scoreboard from the home run contest. We had 2 yesterday. I'm going to give our guy Loyalty Chisel his pick. He picked Ohtani, which was not on the slate that we discussed. It was from the night. That is going to lead me, I think, maybe to making a rule, though, that everybody gets one Ohtani pick for the length of the contest. Kind of applying the Judge Ohtani rule that I use for myself for the pick. I only use each one once during the entire season. I'm not going to apply the no Coors. I'm not going to apply a no Vegas rule, though. So fire away with those. Those are absolute good spots. But Loyalty Chisel hit his Ohtani pick. And then Cujo picked off Riley Green from that monster Tigers outburst. I feel like I had Kerry Carpenter. I feel like everybody on the Tigers, even like Zach McKinstry, everybody on the Tigers hit a home run except for Kerry Carpenter. Carp did have a solid day, though. 4 total bases. It wasn't bad. I think Dingler had a weak day, but 11-run spot for the Detroit Tigers yesterday. That was one of our top-ranked stacks. We talked about them through the show, talked about loving that spot. So I had them in a few, but I just didn't have the right fit. Didn't have the right combination of Tigers, and then outside of that, I didn't have the right second stacks, unfortunately, in the handful of lineups I had them in. But it was a good one. I think Cubs had a pretty good lineup yesterday on FanDuel. He had at least one chaser that I saw I think he finished in the 20s somewhere. And I think that was a Cubs-based lineup where he had Colt Keith. He had most of the correct Cubs, or Tigers, rather. I forget what else. Cujo says I was a day early on Soto. Yeah, love those. That's why frequently, like I've said before, if you go to the team home run, team by team home run picks, I almost always, if the guy the day before was the main home run pick and it missed, I almost always use them the next day, as long as it looks good, obviously, as the team-based home run pick. I'm pretty sure I used Kerry Carpenter from the Tigers today as the team-based, the Tigers home run pick. But yeah, that's your board. If you haven't been here, the rules for our ongoing contest are sitting right there. At some point, I'll make this look nicer, or maybe not. Probably not. But the home run pick, you win the first to 5 is going to win a free month of content at rotoscouts.com. The rules are you have to come back after the show, leave your home run pick, and it's scrolling across the bottom of the screen as I'm saying this, so that's good. Leave your home run pick as a comment on the show. First to 5 wins a free month, which is going to be good at any time. You can use it immediately. You can hold it till September when football and baseball are both going, whatever you want. You have to use the same YouTube handle every day. No burner accounts, no multiple picks across different accounts and asking me to track which name you're using and then combine them just for my sanity. Use one name. 1 pick per person per day. Somebody posted 2 picks yesterday. If you if you put 2 in there, I'm just going to take the guy that you named first. But it's 1 pick per person per day for the contest. Has to come from the slate discussed going forward. Has to come from the slate that the show is about. So you got a lot of picks today. Yesterday, that obviously would have shortened things up. But since I'm picking from that pool for my pick, I want everybody to be picking from the same pool, and that'll avoid any conflicts, any silliness. There's a tie at the end of the run. If we get 2 people get to 5 on the same day, it'll be a tie, and you'll both get it. Can't use the Rotoscouts home run pick of the day. We'll get to who that is for today. Several good ones came through. I changed it like 2 or 3 times before I published the post because I was just like, oh, I really like this one. I really like that one. Excuse me. For my rules, as I said, I only use Judge and Ohtani once per season, and I am avoid taking picks from Coors Field, and I'm currently avoiding taking picks from that Vegas park because I think it's just super obvious standout spot. They look incredible, but there's a number of really interesting home run upside spots for today. That was your stacks board too, by the way. We'll refer back to it. It's an interesting board. Gauge jump, by the way, I altered this. He is no longer the 6th highest projected pitcher. He drops down the list. Had to get in there and account for the ballpark negatives a little bit more. He is a talented kid. Very interesting. I should actually update that on the site. Let me actually add a note. Do that real quick, just to make sure everybody's if you're just going by that stacks board, I don't want to have somebody misled. Stacks, there we go. Action has all right. Throw that on there. Excuse me one sec. I know this is extremely exciting way to start the show, watching me update a note on the website. But these are the links we got to go to for you guys to make sure the content's usable. $1 a day, under $1 a day, excuse me. Access is rotoscouts.com across all of the 4 major sports. You get full projections for every single main slate. You get a ton of content for MLB, ton of content for NFL. Mostly projections only for NBA, NHL. For NBA, we do try and do shows and breakdowns. We've got a free premium Discord, which is linked in the description for this video below. So go grab that. Stacks board's up on the website, but we're going to reveal it for free today as during the show because with this many games, kind of like to refer back to it. There's your leaderboard for the contest. Loyalty Chisel currently in the lead with 2 correct picks. Cujo 1 on the board. And then that's it, gang. Burga Eddie says, hot as shit there in Burga, North Carolina. Well over 100 heat index, 98 degrees. Woo! Yeah, it's been a scorcher up here. It's 94 right now in Jersey, so I feel you. Joker and I took a walk yesterday after that early morning start and took him over to the park, and they have a hose connected into the water fountain. I just gave him a shower in the park to cool him off. And then we walked, maybe another like 20 half hour around town, and I was drenched in sweat. He was completely dry by the time we got back, and he's a big, hairy dog. So, yeah, scorcher out there for sure. And it definitely inflates some run totals. Let's get into this thing. We're seeing some more summer type totals starting to emerge. Some, getting into the 9s in a lot of these different spots. You've obviously got this just absolute meatball hanging there in that Vegas game, though. The Athletics are pulling an 8.32 implied total. It's the talking point of the day. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. The Rockies on the other side, no slouch at 5.85, but that 8-run total to hammer that point home is essentially double many of the other spots on the board, if not more. By comparison, the Philadelphia Phillies at the bottom of the board at 2.96 going up against Jacob Misiorowski. They rate out slightly better at the bottom of this, toward the bottom of the stacks board. I think they were 20th, 19th, 21st. There's only so far you can suppress that really talented lineup, but Miz is obviously another animal this season on the mound, just completely ridiculous. But this one is just the standout spot. I dropped a thing in Discord, just saw somebody's tweet that went through per Ballpark Pal. There have been 22 home runs in Las Vegas during its first 3 games hosting the Athletics compared to an expected 12 to 13 based on how the balls left the bat. That's about 3 home runs added per game before accounting for the altitude's effect on pitch quality, which could have helped. Pretty wild. Difficult to fully account for that, but it's definitely showing through. Whoops. A lot of upside there, and you could goose several of these single-digit numbers. You could goose some of the guys on the Rockies side as well. Hunter Goodman could technically go up a little bit. I didn't want to put my thumb on things too much because, again, it's been 3 games. Obviously, there's a massive home run advantage in this ballpark. A lot of that's driven through the totals anyway, so you're getting more of it into the projection, I think, than maybe into the home run model, which works, those work separately and differently. So just be aware of the launching pad nature of this game. It's going to be absurdly popular for DFS. Starting up at the top of the board, though, Pods and the O's. That gives a little bit better illustration of these different spots. There's a lot of yellow-orange on the board with those, especially with those zeros in there. But just to show that. This is a very interesting game at the top of the board. Padres and Orioles. It's Griff Canning against Shane Baz. Baz has been a little bit up and down to start the season and then through the basically beginning of May. But he's kind of put together a string of effective starts. He's found some strikeout upside. He is a wild card option going up against that super low-end Padres team. Like I said yesterday, they're the worst offense only if you go by runs scored, WRC plus batting average, slugging percentage, and on-base percentage. Outside of that, they climb as high as like 23rd. So I think Baz is usable, but that's a 4.35 implied total against. East Coast game, presumably similar conditions, but they're between Burgo, North Carolina, and New Jersey, and it's 90 degrees on either side of that. So I expect it's pretty good weather conditions in Baltimore, driving a little bit of offensive upside. And then Griff Canning on the mound for the Padres, definitely targetable with some Orioles bats. They're showing a ton of power upside. Really interesting spot in the first game. I swapped out my home run picks a few times before publishing it. One of them originally came from this team, but I didn't end up going in that direction. I changed it up at the last minute. That was the closest one that I was going to use to the guy I picked. Texas Rangers in Fenway, 408 implied total on the Rangers side. You've gotten a couple pieces back. They're going up against Sonny Gray, who is more up and down. He hasn't been bad. He had 1 5-run game, otherwise pretty clean, 3 or fewer runs, 3.20 ERA, but he's got a 3.90 xFIP. 3.94 is the actual FIP, not the xFIP. 4.55 if you care about xERA. He hasn't really been finding the punch outs. I think he's a vulnerable pitcher. It doesn't necessarily mean that Texas is going to connect, but there are bats in that lineup. That is a hitter-friendly park. So I don't think Texas is off the board. And then the Red Sox, kind of interesting as well, going up against Jack Leiter, 4.50 implied total, kind of a middle-of-the-road type option on this one. But a team to consider and keep in mind on just such a large slate. Teams like that just naturally going to go low-owned, even if people do keep them top of mind. The Tigers at the Guardians, 4.14 implied on the Tigers side. They're going up against Tanner Bybee, who I do like on the mound. He's had a few rough ones on the season that kind of skew the numbers. He's got a 4.09 ERA. He's got a 4.20 xFIP under the surface as well. So, I mean, some of the damage that came in these blow-up games was real. But he had a 7 earned run game, 3 starts back against Washington where he only lasted 3 innings. And then he had an 8 earned run game against Atlanta all the way back on April 12th that kind of skew the earned run numbers. Outside of those 2 starts, he only allowed 4 earned runs in one other start. May 4th against Kansas City. Only went 4 in that one. Struck out 4, walked 2, gave up a home run, 4 earned runs on 5 hits. Not a complete disaster, but obviously not quality DFS day. Every other start, 3 runs or fewer. And he only gave up 3 times. So you've got a lot of quality, and Bybee's better than he's been. He can also find the strikeout stuff. I don't mind that spot with some strikeouts on the board in the Tigers lineup, but they are pulling, if memory serves, a decent home run total. Yeah, you can see they're buried down here, 18-18, 20-19 as far as the projection, the value goes. but they're fifth by home run upside. So it might just be one of those days where it gets bendy on Tanner Bybee if they take him deep twice, let's say. And you could end up with an ugly score. Jack Flaherty, entirely vulnerable to that Guardians offense. They only project in the middle of the board as well, 4.45 implied runs. Nothing special about that spot. But Flaherty, some up and down performances through the year. If you look into the game log here, it's not completely brutal. There's a lot of 3 earned run days, but a lot of really short starts. Lack of strikeout in a bunch of the games. 5.31 ERA, but a 4.42 xFIP. Pitching a little bit better under the surface than the surface level results. And a lot of that is, a handful of runs in a short start will do that to you. But I really don't like the spot for Jack Flash. I think you can get to some Guardians bats as a solid mixer, your second stack, some one-offs for sure around some of the better bats. So they're at least interesting. Spencer Strider on the mounds facing a gettable Mets team. 4.21 implied total. Strider's been going 5 in each of the last 3 games. He did go 6 1/3 on May 21st. He's given up a few earned runs, few hits in each of these games. He hasn't been sharp. Handful of strikeouts, but also coming with some walk. It's not peak form Spencer Strider by any stretch of the imagination, but he could break off a good game. He could go out there and strike out 10 on any given slate if he finds the velo again, if the stuff's working right. Going the other direction, Nolan McLean. I think we could throw some of those robust Braves bats at him, but just a 3.88 implied total is at least, causes some hesitance. He's been good, not great. 3.98 ERA, but a 3.52 xFIP under the surface. The strikeouts, 82 Ks in 72 innings, pretty good strikeout option. There are some Ks in that Braves lineup. They're lacking Ronald Acuna Jr. again. So if you're going in that direction, my hope would be on a large slate. The Braves come up a little bit lightly owned against a good pitcher, but I think we probably should lean Nolan McLean in that one just as one of the top talents on the board. Erod going into Cincinnati, where he should be vulnerable to the long ball, but overall this season he's pitched very well. 2.52 ERA. He's got a 4.24 xFIP. That's the real number under the surface, but he's been going 6-7 in most of these starts. Last time out, he gave up 2 home runs, but only allowed 4 earned runs on 6 hits and went 6 1/3 while striking out 5 and walking 1. It's not a quality start. You don't get that bonus on FanDuel, but for where he comes in priced a lot of the time, particularly on DK, where he's an SP2 option more, he's been very, very usable. It's just a super hitter-friendly environment there in Cincinnati. You can see the 4.87 implied total against Erod in Cincinnati. There's a lot working against that spot. It's more I wouldn't be knocked out of my chair if Erod had another surprisingly successful day. But I lean toward the Cincinnati bats. The home run pick of the day comes from the Cincinnati Reds today. Erod is gettable at worst. Nick Lodolo on the mound for the Reds. I think, potentially suffers from the ballpark situation as well. That Diamondbacks lineup, I continue to think a lot of overperforming low-end players, underperforming high-end players. When they mix together right, it's a good hitting environment. I do think you could get Diamondbacks bats here against Lodolo, and I don't know that we need Nick Lodolo. He also hasn't been pitching well. He's got a 4.97 xFIP under his 5.51 ERA, only 25 Ks in 32 innings. I just don't think there's a ton there. So that one's bats. Erod would be in the mix. Yankees, Blue Jays, Ryan Weathers, Trey Yesovich, 2 very high-end pitchers, 2 guys that are going to be necessary for this slate. The judgeless Yankees pose less of a challenge. Stanton's not back yet. That Yankees lineup is not what it was on opening day. 4 implied run total as well. Very low end on both sides of that. 4.08 on the Blue Jays side, going up against a excellent Ryan Weathers. He's been damaged in his last 2 by the long ball. 2 home runs last time out, leading to 5 earned runs, went 6, but gave up 7 hits, struck out just 4. Start before that, he gave up 3 home runs, 5 earned runs on 6 hits, but struck out 10, went 6 2/3. Prior to that, he'd been mostly good, had a 5 earned run day against this Toronto team, though, back on May 18th. So something to watch out for. The Blue Jays, at worst, are a low strikeout, pesky type squad. So I do think we can and kind of need to use some Ryan Weathers in a large portfolio build, but it's not a safe spot. It's not really a upside ceiling type of a opportunity either, and there's some power showing for the Blue Jays. So some good, some bad with Ryan Weathers. I do think that's a both-sided situation, possibly even more so than the Yanks against Yesovich. I think he's just the better option there. That said, the Yankees can take anybody apart. And that's probably one of those ones where it's, they come in at 4 and their average is going to be, 4 and change, but they have a long tail with a high spike at the end of it. That's probably what you're looking at. I'll pull it up in a minute. Dodgers and the White Sox, nearly a 5 implied total for the Dodgers. One of the best options on the stacks board in a non-launching pad type of a situation. They're going up against Anthony Kay, an entirely vulnerable pitcher. Keep an eye on Ohtani. That would be the wild card here. He came out of the game with a knee issue, and they said it was cautionary. They said he's fairly likely to be in the lineup today, but obviously that's a monster piece in or out of the lineup. Even with no Ohtani there, I still would like the Dodgers a bit. I would hope that would knock them down somewhat. The White Sox, 4-1-2 implied. They're going up against Roki Sasaki, who's kind of pulled himself together in recent starts. 10 strikeout day over 7 innings against the Angels. 2-hitter, no runs, 2 walks. Great start last time out. And it has strung together some really good outings. Has pitched deeper in the ball game. So kind of pulling his career together. Interesting option on the mound going up against the White Sox, who are still without Murakami. 4-1-3 implied total. They do have some pesky hitters in that lineup. They have been able to string runs together, but I think Sasaki's an option. The White Sox, just a wild card. Phils, as mentioned, lowest total on the board, sub 3 implied for the Phillies. You don't see that very often. They're going up against Mizurowski, class of the slate, top of your pitching board. Andrew Painter on the mound for the Phils, going up against the Brewers, puts the Brewers offense on the board. 4.64 implied total for them, despite just a 7.5 total in the game. Shows you how bad Painter's been. 6.21 ERA. He has a 4.68 xFIP under the surface, which is bad, but not nearly as brutal as that 6-run mark. But I think this is a bad spot for him against that heavy sequencing Milwaukee team. We know the damage they can do. Astros have Imai on the mound. The Royals are countering with Luinder Avila. I think you can lean into bats on either side of that. Avila hasn't been terrible as far as home runs. That's been his primary attribute. Only 2 home runs allowed to 134 hitters over 31 1/3 in his 3 starts and some relief outings this year. Going the other direction, Imai's put together some decent starts recently. 6 innings of shutout ball against Texas, only 2 Ks. 6 innings of 2-run ball against Milwaukee, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. That's a pretty decent start. And then an 8 strikeout day against the Athletics last time out. 2 earned runs allowed, 8 Ks, 3 walks. Adequate days, maybe as a cheapo wild card you get into it, but I don't love attacking this Royals team. I don't love attacking that environment today. It's just been a Kansas City kind of a week. 4.74 implied total for the Royals puts them on the board. So I think that one's a offense-friendly spot as well. The Cards, the Twins, 4.24 implied for the Cardinals, going up against Joe Ryan, one of the other premium pitchers on the board. We know that Ryan can deal with some premium contact issues from time to time, but we also know he can be a very high-end strikeout option. That Cardinals team could put one into the seats, but I like Joe Ryan a little bit better than I like their offense. Kyle Leahy going for the Cards puts the Twins on the board at a 4.86 implied total. As up and down as that offense can be, that's a good-looking spot. Last 3 here. The Rays, the Angels, 5.07 implied for the Rays. That was another potential source of a home run pick that I was tempted to use. They're going up against Sammy Aldieri, who has made a couple appearances, couple starts, couple relief appearances. Went just an inning in relief on, Saturday? So keep in mind that it's probably, you would reduce pitch count by a small margin, but I don't think he's just going to be very good here. He had a 5 1/3 bulk relief appearance on the 2nd. Allowed 4 hits, struck out 5, walked 2, kept the Rockies off the board in Los Angeles. But this Rays team is quite a bit better than that Rockies team at just getting to first base. And they've got some big-time upside bats there. So I hope that maybe just given all the weight of that Vegas game, all the weight of, maybe the Dodgers, certainly that Royals game drawing some of the eye, the Reds game drawing some of the eye as far as some high totals in hitter-friendly parks, maybe that somehow renders the Rays slightly lower on than they ought to be, at least some of the pieces and parts in that game. So I think they're an interesting offense. And then Shane McClanahan, the one downside with McClanahan is you typically only get 5 innings. He's a very talented pitcher. He gave up 4 earned runs in 5 the last time out, struck out 6. That was against the Marlins at Miami. Kind of a disappointing day, but could find an upside start for strikeouts against this heavy strikeout Angels squad. Even in a short start, he's at least on the board. Probably a better DraftKings play than a FanDuel one. And then we get to Vegas again. Zach Agnos pushing an 8+ implied total toward the Athletics. It's Gage Jump on the mound, shown a lot of talent. He's one of the top prospects for that organization on the mound and has been good since his call-up. 6 1/3 last time out, shutout ball, 3 hits against Houston at Houston. Struck out just 3 and walked 3. Had a 5 strikeout day with 1 walk, 1 earned run on 3 hits over 7 at Wrigley. the start before that. 4 earned runs in his first appearance against Seattle at home in Sutter Field. This is worse conditions than Sutter Field. Like I said, I did reduce his projection. I put my thumb on that one a little bit just to reflect this 5.85 implied total, this absurd ballpark they're playing in. So gauge jump, it wouldn't totally shock me if he had a decent enough day and surprised in that Vegas park against a pretty bad Rockies team. But everything about the situation is working extremely hard against him. So I don't really like that outside of just maybe a dart throw. But it's definitely feeding the bats upside on both sides of that game. And then we get Aviator Assad in the final game going up against the gettable Giants. They're pulling a 4.44 implied total. They're kind of middle of the board stack. They're usable, but Assad has this habit of just finding good starts. Frustrating DFS days in bulk relief the last time out against this Giants team. 6 1/3. That was on the 7th. Yeah, 5 days ago. 6 1/3, faced 21 hitters, struck out 5 of them, allowed 1 walk and 1 hit, no earned runs. And he's facing them in a better ballpark now. That was at Wrigley. This is in San Francisco. Don't be shocked if Aviator Assad actually has an effective day today. He doesn't exactly project toward the top of the board, but that Giants team is really not good. And then Landon Roop on the other side. The Cubbies, 4.15 implied total. I just like that team in terms of their skills. I know they haven't been performing up to standard throughout a lot of this season. Landon Roop is very, very good typically of keeping the ball down, keeping the ball in the yard. So it does take upside away from the Cubs, but it also wouldn't be completely stunning to see them do some damage to Landon Roop. 2 starts back against Milwaukee, he gave up 8 earned runs, struck out 4, walked 5, but was out after 4 innings. Against this Cubs team, though, at Wrigley, also on the 6th. Oh, excuse me, Assad was on the 7th. On the 6th, at Wrigley, 5 2/3, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks on 3 hits. Could easily have that kind of a day in better pitching conditions here, but usable option on the Cubs side. Let's get into the pitching board. I was doing some of that by memory. We'll see where these guys are priced as we talk about them now. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as you're out there. The website is rotoscouts.com, rotoscouts.com. There are still like 5 of those free weeks still sitting there to be claimed. Promo code will be scrolling across the bottom of your screen in a moment. The details will be up there in a moment. We're also running our home run picks contest. I showed the rules and everything at the beginning of the show. Long story short, leave your home run pick. You get one pick per person per day. Cannot be the pick that I make for my home run pick of the day. What were the other rules? God damn it. There were a couple key things to call out there. Can't use my pick of the day. Has to come from this slate, which is discussed on the show. So these 13 games gives you a lot to choose from. One YouTube account. You cannot use multiple names. I won't combine them. Those are the only rules. First to 5 correct home run picks wins a free month. If there's a tie, you both get it. There's your pitching board. Miz, easy at the top. Philly's coming in below a 3 implied total. He's very expensive. He's super worth it. I will throw into the mix, though, that's a very good Phillies lineup, man for man, whether they're performing or not. So 3 runs against. He goes over that Vegas line. You're doing some damage at those prices. 11-3, 12,000 is hefty. But if you can climb that ladder to get there, you, I think, want to get some Jacob Misiorowski. He's just elite, ridiculous elite. Everybody else comes with at least some concern, some damage. We resort to get gauge jump down the board. You can see he went from about here to about here. I still think, on talent, he merits that. And at 7K on DraftKings, that's not uninteresting. We'll talk about it in a second. But Joe Ryan, 10,000, justifiable. The talent's there. The matchup is okay. There is downside with Joe Ryan. There is danger. If the Cards can take him deep a couple times with guys on base, that's going to get bendy at 10K on DraftKings, 99 on FanDuel, kind of the same thing. But that price compares favorably with Spencer Strider, who's no safer. Ryan Weathers, who's even more dangerous probably. 10-3 for Weathers. Much as I like him, the power against has been concerning, the premium contact. He is a decent strikeout pitcher, but that is not a good strikeout spot. So I have a lot of concern about Weathers at these prices. 9,000 on DK at least fits a little bit better because Strider's more expensive. Ryan's more expensive. Where he's more expensive than them, he's a lower end option. Nolan McLean, a little bit of a discount for some up and down performances. 91, 87. Would take that shot against an Acuna-less Braves, but they're still very dangerous. I just like the way he fits into this board price-wise. I doubt you could get him and Mizurowski in anything decent at the plate, but an $8,700 price tag makes him a nice, cheap SP1 option to then go down the board and take a Tanner Bybee at 73 against a vulnerable Tiger squad. Shane Baz in a bad spot maybe, but going up against the worst team in baseball as far as offense goes for 78. Even Yesevich, Sonny Gray, if you can go like, middle. That's a very generous price on a talented kid like Nolan McLean. Joker, what are you doing, buddy? Can you go lie down? Come on, lay down. I don't know what he's up to. Sonny Gray, don't fully trust Sonny Gray, but those prices are decent. 85, 83, and Shane O'Mac at 84. Like I said, you're only probably buying 5 innings, but there could be a solid handful of strikeouts there. I think the issue with that is with taking the quality start bonus potentially off the board, there is a decent shot at a win bonus with his Rays pulling a 5+ implied total. So maybe that works, but I do think you would need probably at least the top end of the board aces to kind of go sideways at least a little bit. You would need that 3-4 run day out of Mizurowski, for example, to knock him down a peg so that McClanahan can compete. That's probably also true of McLean, who I accidentally said there. It's also true of Sonny Gray to a degree. Sonny could come out and find the strikeout upside, but I don't know. I'm skeptical. And the Rangers maybe looking a little bit better for us than they are for Vegas. Not totally sure about that, but Sonny can be good. Yesevich, that works. I don't love 92 on FanDuel by comparison to some of the options through there, but he's a very talented kid with some strikeout upside, and there are Ks to be had in that Yankees lineup. 85 on DK, absolutely in the mix with the other upper echelon $8,000 pitchers. 78 for Baz, as I just mentioned before, would play on DK. I think both those guys are very strong options for like a upper middle type SP2. I wouldn't call you crazy for getting, super discounted and putting those two guys together in a few lineups, to be quite honest. Neither one completely safe, but those are great prices for their potential. And if you're saving that much by comparison to the rest of the guys above them price-wise, you're putting those two guys together with unique back combinations by comparison to anything that anybody that's putting those guys together is, or using one of these guys and one of these guys. You're getting a very unique lineups. If you're just slapping those guys together, you could throw Sonny Gray into that mix. It could be a day where, as I've said a few times in the past, if you're running a bunch of Joker, come lie down. Come on. Being bad. If you're running a bunch of sets of lineups, excuse me for yelling, my poor dog. Lie down, buddy. I don't know what he's going on about. He was just out before the show. Those workers are coming through the hallway again today, so maybe that's what. Is that what it is, pal? Are the workers bothering you? You go lie down? Anyway, might be one of those days where if you're running a bunch of sets of lineups through an optimizer, a lineup building process, a sim tool, whatever you're doing, take the top options off the board for one or two of those runs. Just take these guys, the super expensive guys out of the mix so that you get a little bit more lineups that have just combinations of some of these usable options through the middle pricing, because that will just inject a lot of unique builds into your process, more so than people who are just letting everything fly. Obviously, the majority of your runs, you want to have everybody and you want to have the top end especially. But I think it's an interesting day to do that on DK so that you're getting some of those more unique combinations. You can also get to that through, top slicing the ownership or the exposure numbers on everybody. But I find that the easiest and best way to do it is just take those guys out for a run or two. Continuing down the board, Sasaki. No tax on his recent run of performances. 86, 82 works on either site. You are paying a bit of a tax for Shane Baz, by the way, on FanDuel. Maybe also Yesevich. Talent tax there. 9,300 for Shane Baz. A little bit expensive on the FanDuel board. That knocks a little bit of the quality down. Gauge jump, like I said, 9,000 on FanDuel is kind of a no-way spot. When he comes in similar to a lot of those guys in that launching pad, even as bad as Colorado is, that feels really, really rough. There is strikeout potential. He is good, but dicey. And not a ton of benefit for doing that. At 7,000 on the DK slate, like I said, the talent could win out. If he's missing bats and striking guys in that Colorado lineup out, it diminishes the damage that home runs can do because they're not putting wood on ball. 7,000 kind of works as a total wild card, extreme low-owned SP2. Flaherty, 72 in that SP2 mix for sure. I don't really trust him. I like that Guardians lineup against him a little bit, but he'd be in the mix. On a good day, Jack Flash can still put it together. 8,000 on FanDuel kind of works. 94 for Erod on FanDuel. Doesn't really work all that well for me in that Reds ballpark. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if he went out and had another effective Erod type day, handful of strikeouts, 6-7 innings, couple runs, but nothing damaging. 77, you'll like it a lot more. He's in the SP2 mix on DraftKings for sure, but know that it's a high danger spot, and eventually he's going to go sideways. Lighter, I don't love against Boston, but it's kind of the same thing as I just said about Erod. He's usable at 75 on your DK slate. Lodolo would probably be in that mix as well against a up and down Arizona lineup. It's really the ballpark that's primarily working against Lodolo at 67. 77 on FanDuel, again, I find kind of unnecessary, but there is something to be said about embracing at least some of the cheap options. He's a talented guy, but it's a really bad pitching spot. Landon Root, probably overpriced. 89, 86. Not a big-time strikeout guy, just decent run limiter. I don't really like that option on either side. He should be a little bit cheaper. Imai, bad conditions, but 6,300 coming off a few good starts. That might be a usable piece for a bargain bin option on DraftKings. Griff Canning, I think there's too much just showing for the Orioles to really put him into the mix, but 53 is a uniquely cheap price. If you're just building a ton of lineups and mixing things up at SP2, it's not completely nuts. But I definitely lean Orioles offense there. 72 on FanDuel, I find it unnecessary. Luis Avila, very, very cheap as well on DraftKings. Again, bad situation there pitching-wise and conditions-wise, but 55, awfully cheap. Leahy, you could say those same things. Javier Assad, I already talked about. That, I think, is the most interesting bargain bin option. I don't think he's actually very good, but he strings together really interesting starts, and he can find strikeout upside. That's a pitcher-friendly situation. He just got this team in bulk relief. 6,000, awfully cheap. That would probably be if I'm dipping into the bargain bin to say buy Athletics bats and another high-end stack on FanDuel. 66 with Javier Assad, I think, is the path there, because I don't really trust Andrew Painter in his current form at all. I think he needs some more seasoning, and that's a great run sequencing team. These guys down the bottom are absolute hard nose in basically any situation. I don't think you want Sammy Aldieri in probably a short start against a good enough Rays team. Agnos, no way in that Athletic situation. And Anthony Kay against the Dodgers at those prices, pretty hard pass. If Kay was at 55, maybe I'd make an argument for him from the bargain bin. At 65, I don't see it. Salto, what's going on? Meech is here. Andy GPS. Daniel Pope says, my thought, fade the A's. Yeah, look, I mean, we've talked about it before, how you handle those premium spots. And my tendency is to use, but maybe undercut the insane popularity that they're going to draw, and then try your best to get to them with unique combinations of pitching, unique combinations of hitters, and unique second stacks. And there are definitely paths. Baseball is the sport in which you can build the most unique lineups. I don't sweat individual ownership nearly as much as I sweat, full stack ownership, combination ownership. There will be lower owned combinations in that game that we'll try and get to when we get to that, probably 2 hours from now. But yeah, it is a path. And especially, if you're building one lineup, do you need to use that one? No, there are other good spots on the board. We saw a couple light games, as crazy as it's been out there. You see it at Coors Field all the time. It turned into, it was a 5-run game, 3-2 ball game. It happens. It's baseball. So if you're just playing the baseball of it, good reasons to go around that spot if you're only building one lineup, if you're only building 3 lineups. If you're building 3, I'd probably have it in at least one, but maybe that goes to the Rockies side. Rockies will be lower owned in that game for sure. Always are. So interesting enough. And he said, woohoo, made it to happy Friday. Yeah, happy Friday, pal. Let me put the contest board up real quick. I said the rules again, but just to note for everybody that it did get your picks from yesterday. If you weren't here at the beginning of the show, Loyalty Chisel currently in the lead, but going forward, Loyalty, if you're here now, if you weren't here earlier, you can no longer use Ohtani. Everybody gets Ohtani once. That's the other new rule. And we'll see if he comes back healthy. You guys can use Coors. You guys can use Vegas. I won't. You can't use my pick, but Loyalty Chisel on the board with 2. And the reason I brought the Ohtani thing up also is you have to use the slate that we're talking about. That was yesterday from the later slate. So I gave it to you, but from now on, we're only picking from the slate we talk about on the show, guys. The other winner yesterday, Cujo hit Riley Green. So Cujo's on the board with 1. Everybody else in at 0. Loyalty Chisel, your leader so far. First to 5 gets a free month. Check out rotoscouts.com. Everything's under $1 a day. All-in pricing for all 4 major sports all the time. Monthly, weekly, and quarterly plans are available. So give that a look. Promo code CubsWin still gets you a free first week on a weekly. So give it a trial balloon if you want to. Hopefully you stick around. If you cancel it, you won't get billed for a renewal. If you don't cancel it, it'll renew at regular price the next week. Padres, Orioles. Again, this is an interesting enough game for offense. Let me pull up the old prop finder site here and talk weather for a minute, because it is a big-time factor with this heat wave. 85 degrees at game time in Camden. 6-mile-an-hour wind blown out toward like the right field foul pole. So just good hitting conditions in Camden and gettable pitching. Looking around the rest of the board, we don't really have any super high danger spots. Roth has Fenway, yellow, Citi Field, yellow, and Target Field, Minnesota, yellow. But none of them are overly concerning. I think it's just, pop-up storms that could come through, cause a delay. He's seeing maybe a delay in Fenway. Maybe they pregame rain in Citi Field. So it's one of those, like, it's been hot and humid all day and we get a late afternoon storm kind of days in New York. But he says should play 9 innings, no in-game problems for the Braves-Mets game. And then the Cards-Twins, he says, starts dry, could see some storms in the later half of the game, but it's only a 40% chance of precipitation. Your Vegas game is going to be 98 degrees. With a 12-mile-an-hour wind blowing out toward right field. Good God. That's why we don't play baseball in the desert. Cincinnati, light wind, 4-mile-an-hour blowing out toward almost dead center, 77 degrees, but just super good hitting conditions there. Cleveland, no issues. Weather-wise, wind blowing in across the field. Wind is blowing out in Los Angeles for that Rays at Angels game, 7 miles an hour, but kind of a dead center, not really a great boost. I mean, it's a good spot anyway for Rays bats. San Francisco's got wind blowing out, but that ballpark's funky with wind anyway, so no consideration there, and it's blowing out toward that deep dead center that they've got out there. 11-mile-an-hour wind is blowing out toward left field, which could be beneficial in that Dodgers-White Sox game, though. So, again, really like the looks of the Dodgers, and it might be a spot where you get them a little bit sneaky. But all that was to just highlight that this is good hitting conditions in this game. It's Griff Canning, a nothing option on the mound. 23.7% strikeout, sure, but 12.2% walk, allowing fair amount of premium contact. Has been on a low average launch angle, but the 10.1% barrels mean the mistakes are getting tattooed. And 92.2 miles an hour of exit velo, 50+% hard hits, 4.32% home run rate so far. It's over 7 starts, 32 and a third, over which he has a 6.34 ERA, just a 4.02, 4.30 xFIP in Sierra. He is a better pitcher than the 6-run guy, but is a 4-run type pitcher who's vulnerable to power. These Orioles do have power in their lineup. As you can see, 4 guys above the magic number, another couple guys lurking around it. So ton of upside for a 4.75 implied total on the Orioles side. I like the over there. Shane Baz at 78 on DraftKings, works 93 on FanDuel. Pretty rough. Just under a 20% strikeout rate, over 13 starts, 9.1% walk rate, 4.09 ERA, 4.35 xFIP. He's around this guy right now. Allowing a little bit of premium contact and power that has not come back to bite him in terms of home runs. We're over the line in both of these. We're just below at 9% barrels, 14-degree average launch. So there's some fly balls. There is some opportunity for the Padres to take him deep. Get the 3rd home run of the year out of Fernando Tatis, maybe. Get a little Jackson Merrill on the board. 2 of these guys above the magic number, but both of them have really been scuffling this season. So Baz is playable, and if you're chasing the recent run of success, it's justifiable at the DraftKings price. Really bumpy at the FanDuel one, and the 4.35 implied total is not great for business there. Tatis, just 49, just 29. Those are reasonable prices. I know he's been struggling, but he's second base eligible on both sites. It's not a completely terrible second base one-off to just keep in mind against Shane Baz. Taking the power situation out of the mix, it's a guy slashing 281, 347, 348 with a 352 xWOB onto the surface. 51.5% hard hit rate. That's a very good player. He's not mispriced for just what he's doing in the leadoff spot. Ahead of some guys who are up and down performer or pretty downside performers so far this year, but much more talented than they've been this year. It's not completely crazy. Jackson Merrill at 39, 29, usable piece in the outfield. He's been bad, over 267 chances. Again, this has been the worst offense in baseball. I'm not exactly full-throatedly endorsing going to the Padres here. 6 home runs, 10 steals, can give you interesting fantasy days. We know he's way better than this. 316 xWOBA under, at least this is still below average, but at least it shows you something under that god-awful xWOBA. Decent enough premium contact numbers that are somewhat in line with previous seasons. He's usable. He's cheap. Manny Machado, 172, 253, 345. He might be on the bottom of the ocean at this point. Going back to my old drowning metaphor. 44, 28, though. He's cheap. He's striking out around the league average rate. He's walking a little above average. 8.2% barrels and 42% hard hits. That's not completely awful. It's not Manny Machado, but it's not completely awful. That's around an average okay hitter. 11 home runs, despite the struggles, reflects a little bit of that. Way below average xWOBA, even worse actual, 68 WRC plus. Nothing you can trust, but nobody's going to trust him, so it's going to render him low owned in a reasonable enough upside spot on a very deep slate. Gavin Sheets from the left side, 31-28, a little bit of power. He's got 10 home runs on the board, but lacks consistency as well. One of their better offensive run creators so far, though, 115 WRC plus on the season. Will Wagner, another lefty, if he's in the lineup that you can throw into the mix, you hit the lineups button. While I hit the lineups button, you hit the like button, by the way. Subscribe to the channel. If anybody knows why the notifications wouldn't be working for our guy Wayne Stark, by the way, let him know. Tall Tales here. Says his pods are going to get it going, hopefully. They're too talented to keep this up all season. It's going to end up being an ugly year for a lot of these guys overall, but they're too talented to be this bad all year. We did get the Orioles lineup in there, but not the Pods. Everybody going down the board here, mix and match quality. Now, Will Wagner, you can work into the mix maybe because he's very cheap. He fills third base on either site, second base eligible on FanDuel, but that's where I probably want Tatis if I'm going to this team. Samad Taylor hasn't really done anything interesting. Well, he's been all right average and run creation-wise, I guess I should say. Over 19 plate appearances so far. Last year, 9 pretty bad plate appearances. Year before, 5 okay plate appearances. We'll see where the truth takes us. He's another very cheap option, just a mixer, though, if you're building with this team. Bryce Johnson, a little bit larger sample, pretty inept outside of the 5 stolen bases. Freddie Finnerman in years past has hit for more average than this. 154, 241, 274 is pretty uncharacteristic, but he doesn't hit the ball particularly hard. He's just low strikeout frequency of balls in play. You could get away with him at 2,100 as a catcher, as just a fifth man in if you're building a large Padres stack on this one. Sun Mun Song, kind of mix and matchy. 4 stolen bases, but a pretty bad slash line over 46 plate appearances. Awfully cheap, but second base shortstop. I don't want him at second because that's where I get Tatis, and I definitely don't want him at short. Orioles side, I think the more interesting of the two offenses. More power showing for sure against the more vulnerable pitcher. 475 implied total for the home team. Taylor Ward, we've talked about it a lot. 410 on base against that 19.2% walk rate. One of the better on base percentages, one of the better walk rates you're going to see. Excellent 357 weighted on base with a 358 xWOBA under the surface. That is almost an exact match because his barrels, his hard hits have come down fairly significantly. The hard hit rate, 41.8, is close enough to 42s the last couple of years, but the barrels have gone from 13% the last 2 seasons down to 4.8%. That's where all the power's gone. That's where, that's why if he was just finding the barrel but not finding the home runs, you would see a little bit more xWOBA on top of that already very good 358. But right now just is who he is on the surface, and that's a very good table setter. That's a very good correlated scoring piece that people aren't going to go to as much because they see him as a home run hitter and he's not hitting home runs. So that leaves him a little bit lower owned than he ought to be, and those are good prices for that. 4,000, 3,100. Nice access point to this Orioles stack. He's not the reason you want to go here, but he's still drawing an 11.75 in my home run model because it's got a long memory. And this is a dude who's hit a fair amount of home runs over the last few years. 36 last year, 25 the year before, 14 and 409 plate appearances the year before that on lighter contact. don't be stunned if Taylor Ward puts one on the seats and then is on base 2 other times. Gunnar is the guy that was originally the home run pick of the day before I decided to go a different direction before publishing. 54-34, not bad prices for a talented player. 13 homers on the board, a 10.38 lefty going up against a easy-to-hit righty. Love the upside for a big Gunnar day. He hasn't been great in terms of consistency. 218, 284 on the front side of the slash line, 304, 303 weighted on base in xWOBA, but some decent games for upside for home runs. Premium contact in place with around where he was last year, nowhere near where he was 2 years ago, but it's a very big-time upside shortstop. No issues with the positioning. Adley, 43-37, differently priced across sites. Cheaper where you need catchers. That's fantastic. Take advantage. 9.6% barrel, 47% hard hits, 8 home runs, an excellent slash line. Adley's been very, very good this year, and that's a great price. DraftKings doesn't seem to have noticed. FanDuel did and overreacted to it because you want Pete Alonso most of the time. If I'm going to this O's team, I like a lot of combinations that have both of those guys. You've also got Sammy Basayo a spot later, so you've got 3 guys competing for your catcher, first base / util, or a combination of both. It's not ideal for building lineups on FanDuel to have all that going through those 2 spots because you have to compromise that util spot a little bit. But I do like using it on any one of these 3 guys, or getting 2 of these 3 guys in conjunction with one another. There's a lot of power going through that trio. Alonso has 15 home runs. Okay, but nowhere near where he was last year in terms of the slash line. But you could see we could expect some of it at least to come back. A 372 xWOBA under already good 338, 116 WRC plus. Excellent premium contact. It's still Pete Alonso in there. Sammy Basayo, to further the point, only 3,800 where you need catchers. He's 29 on FanDuel, which just makes him a nice bargain piece. But 9 home runs and 203 plate appearances, some fantastic premium contact numbers. That's a great lefty option to throw at Griff Canning here. I don't really understand why the Orioles' 2 catchers are so cheap on DK. Kobe Mayo, a lot of premium contact out of him, 8.82 in the home run model. 2 guys in the 9s lurking at the bottom of the Orioles lineup as well, Colton Cowser and Tyler O'Neill. Look at all the power in this Orioles lineup, one of the top-ranked home run teams of the day. They came in 4-4, 4-8 because they're a little bit more expensive, I guess, on DraftKings, but that was ranked against a different configuration of this lineup. That value number might have gone up. Second-ranked home run team behind only the Athletics today. And that might have gone up, too. What are the numbers on that? Do I have them? No, I don't. Check the website if you want the averages from earlier in the day. They're right here. I don't know if you guys knew that. This is the full lineup that I put up there, and then this is the top 6. So, usability 1 through 9 in this Orioles lineup. You've got guys that are star caliber talents or potentially star caliber talents hiding down the bottom of the lineup. All of them have been pretty bad this season, but that does not mean that any one of them couldn't go completely off in this spot. Excellent lineup, excellent team for building a lot of lineups with, working in around your Athletic stacks, your Dodgers stacks, your Rockies probably combined with this team fairly well. Although thinking that through Hunter Goodman, catcher, maybe not. Yeah, very, very usable Orioles team. Orioles offense. Ugh. Orioles bats, probably Shane Baz on DraftKings. Padres bats, Shane Baz on FanDuel. And Griff Canning's looking really ugly here. 4.50 implied total for the Red Sox. We have their lineup in. They're going up against Jack Leiter. 4.69 ERA, but a 4.06 xFIP, 4.03 Sierra. I think that Jack Leiter eventually, really finds form, finds his ongoing talent, and becomes a pretty decent pitcher. 24.5% strikeout against a 10% walk rate isn't going to get it done, but that's an interesting swinging strike rate. He has been giving up the premium contact, the power on a fly ball type trajectory, though, and that's probably going to be some problematic contact for the Red Sox against. So on a deep pitching slate like this, I don't think you need Jack Leiter, but it is a dart you could throw from a $7,500 price point as an SP2 on DraftKings from time to time. He's not going to be popular, be a kind of an angle, but odds are you roll this 100 times, you're getting a quality Leiter game, probably fewer than 20 of them. 87 on FanDuel seems unnecessary. Sonny is probably the more interesting of the 2 pitchers, even though he comes in at a lower strikeout rate, just obviously more proven over time, but strikeout to walk, 6.9% walk rather than the 10% walk. Leiter just puts himself in too much danger. And Sonny avoids premium contact. He keeps the ball on the ground. He's excellent at inducing weak and medium contact, so you don't have a lot of big-time DFS scoring events against. This is a Rangers lineup, though, that has improved with Wyatt Langford coming back, with Corey Seager coming back, with just the performance of some of these guys up and down the lineup. So it's a better-than-they-seem Rangers lineup, I think, and it wouldn't stun me if they had an okay 5-6 run type day and ruin Sonny's day. 83, 85. You could see it could be one of those days where you're lamenting putting Sonny Gray in as your pitcher in the first inning because the Rangers put 3 runs on the board against him because, Langford and Seager were on base and, or let's say Langford got on base, Seager, long fly ball, Langford advances, Josh Young singles first and third, and then Brandon Nimmo goes deep. How about that? Could ruin Sonny Gray's day, even at a fair price. You could get away with that if Sonny goes deep into the game, finds Ks the rest of the way, but you would still need some of those expensive guys to go sideways. On the Rangers side, Wyatt Langford, again, very interesting. This is a guy who went 22-22 last year. He's 3,600, 3,000, over 109 plate appearances. He hasn't really been great across the slash line, but 2 home runs, 3 steals, handful of runs scored. There's been some fantasy scoring. And he hit the ball very, very hard throughout last year. 14% barrel, 48.4% hard hit. That's a good player. Corey Seager's a star. He doesn't look like it right now. 186, 284, 373. He's got a 336 XWOBA that you can hang a lantern on against a 290 actual. That's a well above average XWOBA. It's not Corey Seager, but at least it reflects some of the premium contact. 15.2% barrels, 44.8% hard hits. Just not finding his usual consistency and a lot of bad luck in there. But 9.14 in the home run model for the big lefty. I definitely like taking my chances. If I'm going to the Rangers, I'm not leaving Corey Seager at these prices on the table. Josh Young, 39 at third base, totally works. 309, 363, 473, a 135 WRC plus. Just having a tremendous year. And DraftKings doesn't seem to have noticed at a crucial position for building. There's obviously a huge slate, a lot of options today, but Josh Young deserves some attention as a very good third base option. At that price, you could keep Josh Young in mind as a one-off third baseman. 33 on FanDuel just kind of fits in at the average, but still a decent option at the position. 37 for Nimmo totally works. Same with 29 on FanDuel. I don't know why we're priced like this. 11.1% barrel, 52.3% hard hit. I feel like those prices, maybe taking into account some of the team struggles overall. Nimmo's hit 7 home runs, 334 on base, 109 WRC plus. It's a good bat, good player who has been better in years past, and some of that is showing in his 377 XWOB under his 329 actual. Ezekiel Duran, solid mixer, more utility guy. Don't like that $3,200 FanDuel price at all, but he does give you some flex if you're using this team on FanDuel, so he can work his way into some lineups for that. 4 home runs, 5 steals. This is stretches we've seen stretches like this in the past from Duran, and typically comes back down to earth. 316 xWOBA under his 352 actual to reflect that. No real premium contact. 37 on DraftKings makes him easily playable. Second base, not shortstop. Jake Berger's cheap, 3,400 for a guy putting a 9.6% barrel and 47.8% hard hit rate on the board. The barrel rate is down, but we know he could easily get back there with a few good batted ball events. It's not completely down. It's not bad anyway. 11 home runs on the season and 267 chances. A Jake Berger surge, a Jake Berger just high-end performance from the right side in Fenway Park, definitely on the board. That's a cheap price. 3,000 on FanDuel is awfully cheap too. 7.16 in the home run model. Again, Sonny is good at keeping the ball in the yard, but that's a good home run hitter going the other way. Evan Carter, line drive hitter, usable outfielder. Not a great season, but 10 stolen bases to give you a little bit of bonus scoring. More talented than his 227 plate appearances this year. Kyle Higashioka's played a lot of games in Fenway Park. Love the upside for a premium contact. Good batted ball event. Maybe he finds his 5th home run on his way to 10 or 11 this season. Awfully cheap catcher option on DraftKings. No way is he a go-to, but he's a mixer if you're using this Ranger squad. And then Nicky Lopez, not much of a bat at the bottom. Daniel Pope, his phone died right after he made the comment. Is he crazy to fade the A's? No. My answer was essentially no, especially if you're building like one lineup. No, you're not at all crazy to fade the A's. My approach across even just a handful of lineups would be undercut popularity. And then, your primary focus in any ownership concern, any, should I get away from this popular squad, is it's all about the combinations, right? It's not about just the raw ownership. You can use anybody at any popularity as long as you're doing some offsetting throughout your lineup. And especially if you're getting to those expensive guys, Just pick a different bargain bin pitcher if you're putting SP2 on the board. Go to one of those constructions that I showed at the beginning where you're going like middle pitchers. And you got to hope for the best, obviously, at the top of the board if you do that. But it just immediately gets you different within the subset of people that are using the A's. So there are easy paths in baseball to offsetting any popularity concerns in any lineup. So I would never recommend a full fade across multiple lineup builds. You'll want to have some in. If you're building 3 lineups, like I said when I was answering you previously, if you're building 3 lineups, I would have them in at least 1. And just use different combinations. And it's easy enough on a large slate like this to ensure that you are. If you're using one, if you're making one lineup, if you're entering a single entry, especially, there's nothing at all wrong, especially on a deep slate like this with a lot of other good spots for offense, nothing at all wrong with going away from that game, because we saw it just this week in this Vegas park. That does not guarantee a big, even real life baseball game, let alone a big DFS day for the guys that you happen to have picked. So yeah, you can go around it. As much as I said you can use anything at any popularity, you can also go around anything because there's other good spots, and baseball's funky. Hopefully that answers the question without being too fence-sitting about it. Getting to the Red Sox side. Definitely a team that you can use against Jackie Leiter in their home park, good hitter park at these prices. They're not a go-to option. Where do they rank? It's kind of middle of the board, but I feel like they're kind of hiding there. Maybe some of that's reflected in the 8th ranked value spot on DraftKings. Milwaukee by 26 value. Yikes. 8th ranked by value on DraftKings. They're not pulling a ton of home run, which is interesting. Leiter has given up a lot of premium contact. I'm kind of surprised Willier's not above 10 in the model. He's only hit 7 on the season, but the barrel rate is only down a point. The hard hit rate's down about a point from where he was last year. That's a very good home run bat from the left side to throw into Jack Leiter and the premium contact that he's allowing. And for things like that, I think maybe you could get to the Red Sox as one of those Leiter-owned teams that could combine well with the Athletics, because they won't be as popular as a second stack as a lot of these other teams. And they're pretty affordable, so the pricing probably works. You've got on FanDuel a ridiculous amount of positional flex to throw into the mix too. Look at all that. There's not a team you can't combine these Red Sox with for all that positional flex at cheap pricing. Some of it goes through the same positions, but I mean, obviously you stagger that, and you've got so many middle infielders on this team too. So if you're going to the corners and the outfield, which is kind of what you want to do with that Athletics team, this seems like a natural. Now, you're talking about one of those guys is IKF. One of those guys is Caleb Durbin, who have been, IKF is just not a good DFS bat. He's a singles hitter. Caleb Durbin's been one of the worst bats in baseball all season. But another one of those guys is Marcelo Mayer. You've got a catcher in the mix with Connor Wong, who can hit the ball hard. You've got usability up at the top with Sedan Rafaela with second base and shortstop eligibility. Mickey Gasper on FanDuel has second base eligibility. There's a lot of playability given all those combinations. It's a lot less so on DraftKings because it's very straightforward positioning. The one guy with positional flex is probably the guy you'd want the least over there. But they are very, very usable, and I bet you they fit together well with some of the top teams. Gasper catcher only on DraftKings, but a leadoff hitting catcher in a good spot for 3,300 kind of works for me on that site. That's an interesting name to keep in mind for some one-off catcher shares. 43.3% hard hit rate so far over 85 plate appearances. Holding his own, 273, 321, 338. This is no star by any means, and you can see a bad WOBA with an even worse ex-WOBA tells you that he's no star, but that's just an interesting option for the price and the positioning in that spot in the batting order. Rafael at 35.29, again, totally usable. 283.39, 431. Expect the slash line comes down a little bit, but the counting stats remain pretty strong, especially if he continues hitting at the top of the lineup. Totally miscast as a 2-hitter for normal circumstances, but for what we're doing for you here for DFS, that works. 35.29. The prices are also good. Talked about Wheeler. Love the upside. Wilson Contreras, monster barrel rate, 43.5% hard hit rate. That's a very usable first baseman. He's got catcher eligibility for no good reason on FanDuel. 13 home runs on the board. 284, 381, 516, 145. I say for no good reason because that's the same position on FanDuel, so what does it matter? Jarren Duran at 48.34. Overpriced for his current performance, but that's a very good lefty bat to throw at Jack Leiter. I say overpriced because he's at 210, 269, 383 on the season with a 287 WOBA and a 295 X WOBA. If he was performing to his normal levels, I'd probably be saying he's a overrated option because I think he falls somewhere in between. But for these prices, that's just not really reflective of the talent. But it probably does render him one of the lower owned pieces in this Red Sox lineup because people will just work around him. The fact that he's an outfielder when you're going to look to combine this team with a lot of outfield heavy top options, though, would make it a little bit less appealing, even through that lens of like low exposure. 11 stolen bases on the season, at least. That is him, right? Yeah, 10 home runs, 11 steals. But an ugly, ugly slash line and a total lack of consistency. Solid 11.2% barrel rate to throw into Jack Leiter's 11-1, though. And then, again, these guys at the bottom, Connor Wong's a usable discount catcher. 82 decent plate appearances just on the board already this season. No power showing yet this year. Last year, hit no home runs in 188 chances. Going back in time to 2024, though, he put 13 homers on the board in 487 chances, had a robust season that year. That's a reasonable enough dart throw catcher from the bottom of the lineup. Odd to have back-to-back catchers like that. I'm going to say Red Sox bats, especially on FanDuel. Sonny Gray. Rangers bats reasonably close to Sonny Gray, and then a big offset down to Jack Leiter. Hit the like button for me. Subscribe to the channel if you want to. Hit the notification bell if you want to get the updates about when the show goes live. Totally variable start times for this show on any given day. Follow the @Rotoscouts Twitter handle for those same announcements. Pay attention to the scroll at the bottom of the screen for details about free first weeks on a weekly and our ongoing home run picks contest that you guys can enter with a comment after the show. All the details are scrolling there for you. Well, at least some of them are. You got to pick a Damn it. You got to pick a guy from the slate we're talking about. You can only use Shohei Ohtani once across the entire contest. You can't use the guy I pick as the home run pick of the day, and you have to use a consistent YouTube name. That's the only rules. Tigers going up against Tanner Bybee. I like the looks of Bybee. 19% strikeout, 7.6% walk. He's been better for strikeout in years past, including last year is 21%, 26% 2 years ago. So the strikeout stuff is dipped somewhat over the last two seasons. Went from 12.2 down to 10.0 swinging strikes, but he's back up at 11.5% swinging strikes. He's found some Ks. I do like the ongoing upside. And as mentioned, some of the inflated ERA, some of, I think, the inflated XFIP and Sierra are caused by a few blow-up spots that were very real his fault blow-up spots. He's given up a fair amount of power, 9.6% barrel on a fly ball trajectory, 90.8 miles an hour of exit velo, 45% hard hits. We're well over the mark there on for a fly ball pitcher. 4% home runs is entirely believable. So there's some downside, and it's reflected through the power hitters in this Tigers lineup. But the good version of Bybee goes out, limits this team to 2-3 runs, has a quality start, pitches deep into the game, which he's very, very capable of doing. At price, he's a very, very strong option on this slate, particularly on DK, SP2, but he's an SP1 talent that you can use as a cheap SP1 and put him together with a lot. 414 implied total, for the Tigers, shows their quality a little bit. They've been an up and down squad, but they got some key pieces back in Gleyber Torres, who, after we talked about him, hit his fourth home run, one of several guys to go deep this week for the Tigers. As mentioned, everybody not named Kerry Carpenter went deep on this team last night, basically. Monster day, I don't expect the repeat of that, but a 5-6 run day against Bybee, a downside day, wouldn't surprise either. I would call it like a 65-35 in 100 spins. Jack Flash, probably the downside pitcher here, 72-8,000. He is striking out 26.3%. On a good day, he goes out and shuts down this Guardians lineup and has an okay fantasy day, but he's walking 11.3%. He's allowing a fair amount of premium contact on an extreme fly ball trajectory. 5.31 ERA. He does have a 4.08 Sierra underneath that, which is a good indicator of future ERA. So he's been pitching worse on the surface, and some of it not necessarily his fault. But given the walks, given these Guardians' ability to draw walks, get on base, you've got how many guys in here? You've got a 10.5% average walk rate, dragged down by several low marks. If you're just looking at the quality, that's a 6-man group that has a 12.8% average walk rate. These Guardians are going to be on base. And guess what? Most of those guys don't really strike out that much. Sub 20% strikeout for the confirmed Guardians lineup. This isn't a great spot for Jack Flash. It's showing a little bit in the Guardians total at 4.45. They've got upside. They've got usability. They're not, I don't think, as usable as the Red Sox are, at least on FanDuel, just because of the positional flex that we talked about on the Red Sox side. But this is another team that's going to be a good fit with a lot of different high-end offenses from a reasonable mid-4 total against a gettable starter. So I really think the Guardians are on the board, and they got some bats we like. I mean, a superstar in Jose Ramirez. Travis Bazzana has been playing well since his debut. 4 home runs and 10 steals on the board already. A couple big lefty options. An underappreciated Rhys Hoskins for what he does. It's good usable DFS lineup today. At the top of the Tigers, Kevin McGonigal, one of the go-to options. Excellent start to his career, 132 WRC plus so far. Kid's a fantastic table setter, low strikeout, high walk rate ahead of the power. You get those same attributes out of Gleyber Torres. He's got a little bit of additional power that may or may not arrive on the season in terms of home runs, but he can still definitely drive the ball, decent doubles hitter. He's on base like crazy, 394 on base right now. After missing some time, he comes in at 4,200, 3,000. At the Keystone. Love the upside for Gleyber Torres to continue just a great season as far as being a correlated scoring piece. He's not an ideal 2-hitter. In a perfect world, they've got one of those guys leading off, the other one hitting like 5th, 6th, somewhere in that mix to reset the table maybe for the bottom. But they've just got a deep lineup. This Tigers team should be so much better than it is. Riley Green, 44, 3,000, a star caliber talent for cheap pricing in the outfield against a good but gettable righty. 301, 391, 462. Hit his 8th home run last night. I think Cujo had that one as his pick in the contest. 9.68 coming back today from the left side. Love the upside for a Riley Green home run, a Dylan Dingler home run, a Kerry Carpenter home run. Going down through the board, Cole Keith, Spencer Torkelson also on that list. Dingler has been outstanding over the last month and change, 16 home runs, most of which came in that stretch. Monster 403 xWOBA under a 371 actual. Just one of the elite catcher bats to go to right now. Only 46 where you need the position, 34 where you don't. That works. Carey, 4,028. Take advantage. He's awfully cheap for a guy who hits his ball as hard as he does and hits as many home runs as he does. 9 in 150 chances on excellent premium contact that could trend upward based on what he's done in the past. Take advantage. He's a high strikeout guy, 32% right now over his 150 plate appearances. He had reduced that down to 22% last year, and it was only 25 in the worse years. So I would expect this comes down over time, too. It's not really a problem for him. Cole Keith, excellent option as cheap as he is. Third base totally works on DK. Multi-positional on FanDuel for only 24. Hit his first home run of the season last night. 262, 305, 342 coming off a monster day. He's a much better talent than he's been this year. So he's just a very good, cheap player. 31-27. You could say similar things about Torque. He's wildly inconsistent, but when he finds his batted ball events, they're usually premium. 10 home runs on the board. He can hit a lot more than that and do it in a hurry. Good option to throw at Tanner Bybee with the power that he's allowing this year. Torque could believably strike out a couple times against Bybee, though, too. McKinstry hit his 2nd home run of the year. He's having an awful season so far, but he's very cheap. Second base eligible, outfield eligible on both sites. Entirely usable piece who's been better in years past. Ultimately, just like a correlated scoring guy for the most part, though. Not a great spot to dig into in the lineup, but cheap helps out. Matt Vierling can put together a good fantasy game here and there. He had 4 home runs and 2 stolen bases over 191. Has had some interesting fantasy years in years past. 16 homers and 6 steals over 567 in his most complete season back in 2024. It's a deep Tigers lineup. On the guard side, I breezed through it a minute ago, but again, Bazzana's been tremendous. Phil's second base, 4,500 is reasonable on DraftKings. 34 is a little higher but against the cap, but still very good on FanDuel. He's getting on base, hitting home runs, stealing bases, lefty bat to throw against the, these days, middle of the road to lower end righty. Really like the upside for Bazzana. He's no secret, though, leading off ahead of Jose Ramirez. Ramirez is a superstar, 10 home runs, 24 steals. Pulling the slash line up slowly but surely. Just a 334 WOBA, but a 358 xWOBA shows the quality under the surface. He'll come out the other side of this season with his usual numbers. Chase DeLauder's cheap at 38-29. 7 quick home runs at the beginning of the season. The slash line continues to trend downward, but they're rolling him out in the 3 spot, looking for some of that consistency, the low strikeout, the high walk rate, put a ball in play or draw a walk. And that's what he was very good at. People might have gotten the wrong idea with that quick rush to 7 home runs that he had, but he can still hit the ball hard and against the guy who's allowing fly balls and power, would not be at all surprising to see DeLauder finally find his 8th. 339 xWOB under the 323 actual. Kyle Manzardo, interesting bat from the left side. You do have positional conflict with him and Rhys Hoskins. You can only have one on DraftKings. Either way, both guys have been exactly the same as far as premium contact. Hoskins a little bit more frequent with the premium contact, but less frequent with the quality outside of the on-base percentage. Both guys very, very close, very, very similar as far as being power bats. Gun to my head, I'd probably go Manzardo just for the lefty of it, but you get a better walk rate out of Rhys Hoskins, more ability to get on base. Rhys is more a 3 true outcomes hitter. We'll see where Kyle Manzardo goes. Ana Martinez, not overpriced. You're not really paying any tax for that surge. He had 11 home runs and 9 stolen bases on the year. Continues to defy who he actually is. He's usable. I still don't love him at 4,000 with some better options around him here, especially if we're second stacking this team. But he's on the board. Same with Steven Kwan. He's just an average hitter who's not hitting for average, so there's not a lot there. But he's a usable guy who could go out and have a solid 3-hit day against Jack Flash. If you run this 100 times, that's on the board for Steven Kwan, a few of those. Patty Bailey, more here to just do the catching and gives upside to Tanner Bybee. Brian Roccio's been good at the plate this year, surprisingly. 5 homers, 11 steals, 276, 357, 396. He'd be usable if he had second base eligibility. The fact that he plays or third base, the fact that he plays shortstop, blocker for a lot of high-end shortstops on a deep slate, kind of challenging, but he's been decent this year, much, much better than he's been at the plate in years past. I think we got to go Bybee. Guardians, pretty close. Tigers not far behind, and then a dip to Jack Flash. Didn't want to do that. Yeah, Chiz, this is a fun slate. Talking as fast as I can because we got a long way to go. 388 implied total on the Acuna-less Braves. That's problematic. Going up against Nolan McLean, who overall 3.98 ERA, but a better xFIP, better Sierra. They're basically matching at 3.5. 27% strikeout against a 9% walk. He's only finding a 9.3% swinging strike rate. I find that a little bit surprising based on the rep, based on the 107 marked by Stuff Plus. I think eventually we find more swinging strike and we go up to even higher, 30-ish% strikeout rate. If he does that against the 9% walk rate, it's not problematic. Right now, it's not great. 18.4 strikeout minus walk. Again, for ace caliber pitchers, we want to be talking about 20 in that strikeout minus walk category, which is a great indicator. But overall, he's been very good. He's also been keeping launch angle down to an extreme 9.1 degree average launch. He's been spectacular, inducing weak and medium contact. 2.68% home run rate, even might be a little inflated given everything going on in those 5 columns. So it does take a little bit of the home run upside away from the hard-hitting Braves. We've seen how this team can struggle when Acuna's out of the lineup for reasons. There are still some great bats here. There is still some danger here from Nolan McLean, and he hasn't been perfect on the season. But I think he's a very usable piece at 91, plenty of upside at 87. He is in that mix for sure of middle-type options on DraftKings if you want to go like middle, expensive SP1. Or inexpensive SP1. Stumbling today. Last time out, 1 earned run. Start before that, 1 earned run. Blew up against the Reds. 3 starts back. Give up 7 earned runs. That was following a 6 earned run day against the Nationals. Prior to that, his run of starts had been much, much better looking. And that inflated the ERA on us a little bit. That's why he's just under 4 right now. But if we've been talking about this game, in mid-May, we would be all over this spot for Nolan McLean, and he'd be significantly more expensive. So absolutely, you can fire that gun. Braves bats against Mixer, but before we get to that, Spencer Strider at 95, 10,000, pretty pricey for a guy who's kind of scuffling to find form. He's finding the strikeout at 29.1%, but he's walking a wildly uncharacteristic 12.8%. That's an issue. 12.5% swinging strike rate is good, but it's not Spencer Strider at peak form. The velo's been up and down. That's been an issue. He is inducing weak and medium contact to at least some degree, but allowing a lot of barrels when he makes mistakes. An extreme fly ball trajectory. A lot of home runs have been hit in the small sample here of 7 starts. Really has only been very good once. 9 strikeout day, 3 earned runs allowed. That was in the 6 1/3 day, and that came against the Miami Marlins. And he allowed 3 home runs in that game. All 3 earned runs came on solo shots. Not great, but very good. An 8 strikeout day, 3 earned runs over 5 innings against the Reds at Cincinnati. Maybe surprised that day a little bit, given that ballpark and given the downside he's shown for some power this year. Outside of those two, been bumpy. Actually, maybe the best start was the one against the Dodgers. He went 6 in that game. That's probably his best start. The second one back. That was all the way back in the beginning of May 9th. At Los Angeles, faced 21 hitters, struck out 8, walked 2, only 1 hit, no runs. So that was his cleanest start. The 6 1/3 innings caught my eye, and that other one, the 9 strikeouts, caught my eye. I think he's usable against an underperforming Mets team. Conditions favor bats in this ballpark today. Again, very, very hot day in the New York area. 4.21 implied total shows some of that on the Mets. So given the contact he's allowing, that's not ideal. But out of all of the possible, wouldn't surprise me if he had a great DFS day pitchers that you could throw into this mix, Spencer Strider is probably at the top of that pile. Braves bats with Mikey Harrison, the leadoff role. He's been phenomenal this year. 4,200 they haven't noticed. 3,300 they've noticed a little bit. But replacing Acuna with this version of Michael Harrison, the leadoff role, at least helps a little. 13 homers, a 339 on base, a 135 WRC plus. It's all real too, based on how he's connecting with the ball, based on excellent strikeout and low walk rate, which he already had as an attribute. So you just get a ton of balls in play. When they go from this level of contact to this level of contact, it is no surprise that he's been as good as he is. 370 WOBA with an even higher 383 xWOBA. So as good as he's been, he's technically been underperforming. Excellent, excellent option to start off a Brave stack. Don't be surprised if he goes out and bends Nolan McLean's day. Ozzie Albies, everything I just said about how real Michael Harris has been is the complete opposite for Ozzie Albies. We've seen Ozzie Albies defy expectation before and defy X stats before. So don't be surprised if he continues this run throughout the season. 280, 334, 444, just a 309 xWOBA under the 340 actual, though. Shows the overperformance. Matt Olson, just performing like Matt Olson. 384 WOBA, 378 xWOBA, no real difference. 19 home runs on excellent contact. One of the better lefty bats, one of the better first basemen on any given slate. I would play him here and would go to him in any circumstance, but McLean's ability so far to keep the ball in the yard, to induce weak and medium contact, does work against Matty O. Not often you see him this far down below the magic number in the home run model. Dom Smith, when he's going in his best hits for average, revenge game, if you're going way, way back in time. Not that we care about that at all. He's cheap for the numbers he's put up this year. 291, 329, 453. More of a table setter than a guy who typically goes deep, but he's hit 6 home runs in a small sample this season, finding a little bit of power, low strikeout, low walk, so a lot of balls in play. He's a usable piece, as is Mauricio Dupont. Dupont's more of a utility guy. Had a good start to his year, has found some interesting DFS days, 104 WRC plus, but overall, a light hitting option who just puts some balls in play across a number of positions. Austin Riley continuing the underperformance. 8 home runs, but 206, 285, 352. The 8 home runs is also even off the pace. The barrels are way down. The hard hits are way down. I am awfully concerned about a guy on my dynasty team here. Mike Yastrzemski's been better in years past. 3 home runs and 193 chances. Pretty poor slash line. I like Yaz to at least find it on any given slate type basis. He's very cheap. So if you're going to the Braves, you can feel comfy building him into some lineups. Just, some extreme underperformance right now in total. There's nothing I can point to show that he will get better outside of just, what he's done in the past. So you can include Yaz for that, but not looking great right now against a very talented pitcher. Ha-Seong Kim, just a mixer in the infield. He's been awful. 57 plate appearances. He's at an 096, 175, 096 slash line. 2.6% barrel. Yeah, that's pretty bad. We've seen Ha-Seong Kim obviously be way better than this, but we don't know if he's going to make it back for sure. A lot of missed games in recent history. Austin Wynn's no better than Ha-Seong Kim has been. Mets side gives you a little bit more usability if you're feeling like targeting Spencer Strider, who, again, wouldn't surprise if he had a great day, but wouldn't surprise with a meltdown given the walk rate. Some of these Mets, obviously, you've got a superstar in the middle of the lineup who's spectacular, drawing walks, not striking out, crushing baseballs. So there's upside there, built mostly around Juan Soto. Some of the interesting lefties in this lineup, like Jared Young, has been interesting. A lot of barrels and hard hits in a small sample out of him. 4 home runs and 75 plate appearances. That's an interesting bat for as cheap as he is. Don't love occupying first base, but at least he's very cheap. So it negates the positional aspect of it, I think, on DraftKings. If I'm playing him on FanDuel, it's primarily going to be in the outfield, but it also does depend on who I'm combining him with, because there's a lot of premium outfield bats in some of those launching pad games. AJ Ewing is a usable piece at 35.28, 263, 343, 347. Good start to his career. Finding the hard hit rate a little bit, striking out too much, but drawing some walks. So he's been interesting. At the top of the lineup, Carson Bench pulled together some really nice numbers. 104 WRC plus, has a super interesting 349 xWOBA on some very, very good contact. Has been underperforming decent as he's been. So you can expect some ongoing upside to come from Carson Bench. That's a very good option for the cheap price to throw into Spencer Strider here. Hasn't really drawn walks at the major league level yet. Not problematic as far as strikeouts go. Not the best table setting option. In a way, it would probably make more sense to have AJ Ewing in that spot and have Carson Bench hitting fifth. But this is the Mets. They don't do things correctly all that often. Marcus Semion's just bad. He's very cheap at second base, but 8 home runs, 5 steals, and nothing slash line, a 75 WRC plus. At least above average xWOBA, though. 324x. You don't want to completely ignore that. 8.7% barrel rate. Everything else has been wildly inconsistent to bad. Brett Beatty can make good contact. Did so throughout last year. This year, over 229 chances. It's been problematic, but he fills 4 key positions on FanDuel for 26. That's an interesting player. MJ Melendez could find the barrel from the left side against this pitcher. 11.7% barrel, 55% hard hit. One well-struck ball in these conditions in the air against Spencer Strider, who again, 10.5% barrels on some mistakes. Extreme fly ball trajectory. MJ could have one of those floater-type home runs, if not a blast. And then Luis Torrens, mix and match quality catcher at the absolute best. Nolan McLean. Spencer Strider, because I can't quit Spencer Strider. Mets bats. Braves bats, a little bit of a dip below the Mets. Bunch of people here hanging out. Do me a favor, hit that like button. Greg Biancone, am I late? Yes. You are an hour and a half into the show, but we're only on like game 5, so a lot to talk about still. Doing my best. Larry C says Tanner Banks will open ahead of Andrew Painter for the Phillies. Okay, good note there. Painter wasn't a guy we were going to anyway. We like the offense against in that game at least a little bit. So, yeah, just another ding for any Andrew Painter you might have wanted to get to. Erod, complicated option. 77 on DK, totally usable. Low faith that he actually keeps on going. 2.52 ERA, 4.24 xFIP, but he has been this guy throughout his career. He's lost some strikeout to be able to be this guy this year and just find that, repeatable motion, find the weak and medium contact, and get somewhat lucky on some batted balls. But nothing about this spot other than the ballpark really says that he couldn't continue it. Don't be surprised at all if Erod pays off 77 on DK. 94 on FanDuel in this ballpark, I have a big problem getting to. I really don't think he's all that usable on FanDuel. You would need several other things to go completely sideways, in addition to him having a good game for that price and probably finding some strikeout. There are Ks for sure in this Reds lineup, but they're also drawing a 4.87 implied total in one of the better hitter parks in baseball. They've got a ton of power in this lineup, even though Erod doesn't typically give up a ton of power. I went to this game for the home run pick of the day just because I love some of these bats, and they've been underperforming on the season by and large. No Ellie still in an ongoing sense, obviously a ding to the Reds' quality, but if he was here, they'd probably be above a 5 implied total in this spot. Nick Lodolo, 32 innings on the season, low strikeout, high walk, problematic ERA 5.51, 4.96 xFIP, 4.83 Sierra. We probably don't want to deploy Lodolo, especially with the ballpark working against him. Diamondbacks drawing a 4.72 implied. As a bargain bin total dart throw, has he had good DFS starts in the past? Sure. Is he pulling an okay projection for that option because the Diamondbacks aren't great? Sure. Is he likely to go out and put up a good strikeout day, keep them off the runs board? No, not at all. Not at all likely against a low strikeout Diamondbacks team. So we're going mostly bats here. 4.72 for the Diamondbacks. Ketel Marte, Corbin Carroll. You guys know what to do there. 11 home runs apiece. Carroll's been the more consistent player, but Marte's on the rise. 370 xWOBA to the 365 for Corbin Carroll, but a 322 actual to the 394 actual that Carroll's put up. Both those players are stars. Ketel Marte remains cheap at 3,300 at the Keystone on FanDuel. That's really, really interesting. 53 on DraftKings is usable. 56 for Carroll. Everybody else in the lineup is cheap, so it's not all that problematic to get to a 5-man here if you wanted to target it, right? I love Gabby Moreno in the 3 spot on this team. He's been rolling out in that spot quite consistently lately, and he's still really cheap for the talent on DraftKings. Even as a 3-man, honestly, it's an expensive 3-man, 14.6, 48.67, so 4,900 a piece, but it greatly reduces those two prices if you're just averaging in one of the cheap guys. I don't love Nolan Arenado here. I continue to think he's mostly broken, but at least he's getting on base. He has hit those 8 home runs. He's not finding the barrel all that much, but at least it's back up from the miserable barrel rates of the last 2 years based on that slow, loopy swing. So he's at worst usable in this park. That gives you added upside. 4-man, now I'm at $18,000 total, $4,500 average, and we could get it even lower, at least slightly. Jordan Lawler's back in our lives at 24. How about that to get it lower? You can plunk him into the outfield next to third base share on Arenado. Now I'm at 20,400 total for the 5-man, $4,080, so $4,100 average. And I'm getting their top 4, including their 2 stars, their excellent catcher, an overperforming bad Nolan Arenado, but very, very cheap, a potentially very good up-and-coming player in Jordan Lawler. That's a really good Diamondbacks 5-man for a cheap price. They're probably going to be more usable as the short stack, as 2-mans, 3-mans, 4-man on FanDuel, sure, on DK. But don't discount the idea of going to like that 5-man probably accesses premium pitching combinations. If you go that 5-man with a 3-man from the A's, this is reasonable there. And I tell you what, that's, well, it's not ideal to fit with the A's. You could get Kurtz into it. You could get one of the outfielders. So maybe a 2-man, like a Kurtz Rooker, a Kurtz Soderstrom, and then pick a one-off. Maybe a cheap one-off, good pitching, or a cheap pitcher, good one-off. That's an interesting way to build. Geraldo Perdomo would be in that mix as well. I just went to Lawler because, very talented young kid at 2,400 caught the eye. But an underperforming Geraldo Perdomo who is still getting on base at a 345 clip. It's surprising that he's below average for run creation. Some of that reflects the lack of quality in his batted ball events on the season, but he's drawing a great walk rate. He's extremely difficult to strike out. Likely guy to be on base, likely a contributor. And for the season, I like his upside in an ongoing sense. 332 xWOB under the 315 actual. Had a phenomenal second half of the season last year as well. Could repeat that this year. Was good in the first half, but fantastic through the second. Lou James Groover, solid mixer at the dead min. Don't love first base, 2,100 at third. We've got other third base options in this lineup. Mix and match guy. Ryan Waldschmidt, another kid, top-end prospect for this organization. 114 okay plate appearances so far. 91 WRC plus, bad WOBA numbers, but a couple decent counting stats, a 267 average. He's been in the mix, 8.8% barrel. I think he finds his talent eventually, just getting his feet under him in the show. On the red side, one of the fastest men in baseball in Dane Myers. That was who I'm thinking of, right? Or was it? No, it's Blake Dunn. Blake Dunn's the fast one, right? Now I gotta look. This is why this show runs long. Because I say things come out of my mouth. Yeah, 98th percentile sprint speed for Blake Dunn. Ridiculously fast player. But Dane Myers has stolen 4 bases as well. He's getting on at a 357 clip, and he's the guy in the leadoff spot for just 3,500 in a pretty desirable offense today. 4.87 implied total. Super cheap across both sites in your outfield. Put him together with JJ Bleday, even against this lefty. I don't have concerns about lefty against Erod. He's the only lefty in the lineup. They have a bunch of hard-hitting righties here. Do not be surprised if the Reds go completely crazy against Erod. No guarantees, obviously. They're not above a 5-run total, but I love the looks of Bleday for all the damage he's done. 11 home runs on the season, a 150 WRC plus, ridiculous 397 weighted on base with a 390 xWOBA. Sal Stewart's been tremendous for premium contact from the right side. He's hit 13 home runs. He's also stolen 10 bases. This team gives you some upside for bonus scoring from stolen bases. They're an interesting fantasy squad. Spencer Steer fits multiple positions, including second base on both sides. He's got a 12.9% barrel and 10 home runs on the year. He's also getting on at a 335 clip. 363 xWOBA says he's going to trend upward. Junior Suarez really struggling to find form, but 5 home runs and 163 plate appearances at least. Has not made his usual contact in that small sample, but remember, that's bookending a long absence. So it's a player who's inconsistent, but elite when he's going right. 49 home runs last year. Yeah. So All that is to say that Gino Suarez remains a monster home run hitter. He's at 9.03 to lead this team in a homer-friendly park against a high contact righty who can hit home runs against, even though he can induce weak and medium contact. Gino Suarez, your home run pick of the day. Blake Dunn at 37.28 could steal you a base based on that speed. 336 on base. Solid slash line for him. 331 weighted on base, but only a 272 xWOBA. It's something to keep an eye on, but we know that these ultra-fast players can beat xWOBA. We see this with Chandler Simpson. We see this with some of the other top elite sprint speed guys, because xWOBA is a large portion of it is based on, it's trying to quantify what should have happened with that batted ball event, based on where the ball was hit, where it was fielded, and normalizing everything else around that. So a guy who has norm-defying sprint speed can beat a poorly positioned baseball to first base. And you see guys like Dunn, you see guys like Chandler Simpson beating out weak hit ground balls to third base, ground balls back to the pitcher in the case of Chandler Simpson. Things that are standard outs for guys who are not Barry Allen. That's how Blake Dunn will potentially continue to beat xWOBA like this. It's not out of the question, and I think he could continue to hit for average, give you some interesting fantasy days. He's not a big-time power bat in any way, but a few singles, some correlated scoring, with some interesting bats below him in the lineup, too. Noelvi Marte has done nothing this season over 48 plate appearances. Last year, 14 homers, 10 stolen bases, over 360, 101 WRC plus. No real consistency, a bad xWOBA under just an average actual, but a kid who could put the ball in the seats. And if Blake Dunn's in your lineup and he happens to do that, that's reasonable for very cheap pricing. Tyler Stevenson is an excellent catcher option to keep in mind on DraftKings, even if you're just looking at him as a one-off. 3,000, that's a good, like, in a 5-2 with a one-off combination. Stevenson's a really interesting one-off if you're not using like Shea Langoliers at catcher in that lineup. It's a guy who's always hit the ball very hard, struggling through the slash line, but 5 home runs and 191 chances, a 331 xWOBA to show some of the quality of the contact under that 297 actual, 13 homers and 342 last year, 19 in 515 the year before, 13 in 517 the year before that. He's no superstar, but he is a cheap catcher who can put the ball in the stands. And then Matty McClain, a multi-category contributor, hitting 9th. He's at least getting on at a okay 310 clip. It's below average, but it's something to hang our hat on when he's hitting 209. He scored some runs. He's hit some homers. He's stolen some bases. It's a very talented guy who is maddeningly inconsistent based on that one great stretch that we had from him a couple years ago where we thought we were going to have an ongoing day after day fantasy asset on our hands. What I want to look at is Matty McClain's recent run, because we've had a bounce in some of these numbers. Let's call it May 15. So this is a perfect illustration of what's frustrating about Matt McClain. His numbers have, in ways, gone up since May 15th. He's hit 4 home runs in that stretch, scored 10, driven in 9. He's stolen 5 bags. He's against 0 caught. But he's hitting 197, 284, 424 over that stretch with a 312 WOBA, 322X. It's just crazy inconsistent, but we know he can fill all the fantasy categories. So very much in play at second base on either site. Less desirable at shortstop. Typically I'm saying because Ellie's in the lineup. He's obviously not. I still would look to put him at second base. He's usable at short. It's a diminished option, but not completely so. He is also drawing an interesting 11.9% walk that could help float the on-base percentage in an ongoing sense. Reds bats, Diamondbacks bats. Erod, Nick Lodolo, but it's actually Erod on DraftKings, Nick Lodolo on DraftKings, Erod, neither guy on FanDuel really, and neither guy looks all that great on DraftKings. Bad pitcher situation. Speaking of bad situations, my Yankees without Aaron Judge in an ongoing sense, still without Giancarlo Stanton. You still got a high danger lineup here. But without a couple of their big boys, it gets a little bit ugly. The Yanks are coming in at just a 4.0 implied total. We haven't seen that all that often this season. They're going up against the tremendous Trey Yesovich. 3.16 ERA, but noteworthy 4.18 xFIP, 4.10 CRA in a small sample. Only 8 starts, 42 2/3. He's walking too many right now, but he's elite in inducing swinging strikes, 13.7% swinging strike rate. The stuff is 11 points above average. You can see he's having problems locating. Pitching Plus doesn't really like what he's doing out there, but just absolutely some wipeout stuff. So against the Yankees lineup, the projected version of which is striking out at a 24.1%, but they do draw a 10.8% walk rate. You can see the up and down nature of this spot, right? There's potentially a lot of Ks, but if he's erratic, these Yankees are easily patient enough, even just the ones we have, to wait out that walk and just put him in danger time and time again. That also runs up pitch count in a concerning way. Even if he's doing a little bit of both, strike out here, walk there, that pitch count could get awfully inflated and shorten this start on you. So at 85, probably more usable, but that's probably also a little bit expensive, even though he's potentially elite. Could have an excellent start for that price, but there's a lot of visible paths toward a downside day. It's more a coin flip type proposition. At 92 on FanDuel, I find that a little bit less necessary, just given how he fits in price-wise next to some of the other guys. But again, it's probably a coin flip. You could have a potentially elite start. He goes and punches out 10 Yankees. It's going to be ugly. Ryan Weathers, you could say some of those things about. I wouldn't call him as elite as Yesevich could potentially be. You can see that in Stuff Plus, 2 points below average, a point and change. But he's been good. 3.86 ERA is good, despite all the power and the premium contact he's allowed on the season. He's found nearly a 28% strikeout rate over 70 innings and 12 starts. 7% walk rate is very good. He's inducing swinging strikes. The xFIP, the Sierra are both lower than the ERA. Nice positive indicator there. Some of the problems have just been based on some happenstance through that premium contact. Even the launch angle at 12.7 degrees isn't egregious. It's just that he's made some mistakes, and when he makes a mistake, it's just sitting there to get tattooed. That's the downside that you get with Weathers. Comes in at 9 on DraftKings, 10-3 on FanDuel. Those do become somewhat problematic prices because of this pesky nature of the Blue Jays, as we've talked about, particularly against left-handed pitching like we saw against Chris Sale. They put 3 runs on you, and they don't give you any strikeout, and it becomes a low-end DFS day for the prices. That's less impactful for the 9 on DraftKings than the 10 on FanDuel with how he compares to the top prices on the board. But it is a concern. I don't love the bats because both pitchers are good. So it's a weirdly 2 good teams, 2 good pitchers, but I don't know if we really want it in either direction here. If you got Yankees in your lineup, though, I wouldn't go to take them out. It's going to be an under-owned Yankees day for sure. We'll do this while I talk about them. Trent Grisham, I'm not going to do this the whole time. Trent Grisham, 41-32. He collided with Jose Caballero in the outfield yesterday. I don't know if that's going to take anybody out of our lives, but hopefully not, because that would be devastating. Grish has been okay this year, not playing to the standard that he was last year, but still a very good barrel rate, reasonable hard hit rate, a 342 on base, makes him a valuable leadoff option. Direct correlation with Ben Rice, direct with Goldie, with Cody Bellinger. You do still have this kid's going to be an all-star this year, right? Belly, since he's on the Yankees, maybe has a shot at being an all-star this year. He's a former MVP. Paul Goldschmidt, multi-time all-star. Forget whether or not he won an MVP ever. Jazz Chisholm is an all-star. Spencer Jones is a top-end prospect. Anthony Volpe's just god-awful and shouldn't be in Major League Baseball. I hate Anthony Volpe. Oh, drives me nuts that he's on this team. Ryan McMahon is a good, underrated bat. Especially for DFS purposes, because there's a lot of power there from the left side, and he can, when he's going right, draw a much better walk rate than he is. Every time I talk about Ryan McMahon in good terms, he goes out and hits a cheap home run. He's hit 7 on the year. I'd say I've done that 4 times already this year. 10.8% barrel, 48.2% hard hit. Obviously, there's nothing actually to that. Don't let me mislead you there. His premium contact numbers are basically in line with years past, and this is a multi-time 20 home run hitter from the left side going up against a kid who's been very, very good at limiting premium contact, but is a fly ball trajectory pitcher. So you get one mistake from Yesevich, and it could definitely lead to a Ryan McMahon home run and as a cheap third base option. JC Escada, just a mixer, still has that weird third base eligibility for 21 on FanDuel that you could throw into the mix. I greatly prefer Rymack if we're doing that. But to save $400, he's a terrible bat. He's nowhere near the probability of hitting a home run that McMahon is. They're both equally likely to give you a 0. But if you want to compromise the $400, you could do it if Escada's in the lineup at all. For some of the guys I breezed through, Ben Rice is having a tremendous season. 18 home runs. Going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting while the big boy's out. Paul Goldschmidt remains affordable at 45-33. Typically, we like Goldie against lefties, but he's just been good, and he's getting consistent plate appearances against both hands with a lot of missing pieces. 287, 366, 524, a 149 WRC plus is second in this group of Yankees. Belly for 51-37 from the left side could do some damage here. Same thing with Jazz. Jazz has 9 home runs and 17 steals. I don't think we're getting his 50-50 season that he predicted preseason, but at least we're somewhat trending upward. Still a concerning 294 xWOBA, but at least he's at a 101 WRC plus. He's been a positive contributor, just barely. Spencer Jones has a 75% hard hit rate over his first 39 plate appearances. That's a dude that you can rely on to put some balls in the seats over a long term. He's only hit 1 so far, but holding his own as far as the slash line goes. Strikeouts are a problem, 41% against an elite potential strikeout pitcher. I like Jones to sit down 2 or 3 times via the K, but maybe he takes one deep. And again, Anthony Volpe is just awful. On the Blue Jays side, George Springer at 428, really struggling through the season. A usable piece. He's righty. He's much, much better than his numbers so far this year. But this could be part of a longer-term trend. We saw him bounce back last season, but around that, 2 pretty bad seasons, or 1.5 pretty bad seasons. I like him to overperform these numbers going forward, but it might not be by enough to make a real impact at the end of the season. 5 homers, 3 steals. Hope to get him on base, but he's only doing that at a 291 clip this year. Walks are down. Strikeouts are slightly up, but not in a problematic way. Just not a lot of George Springer sightings on the season. Ernie Clement has been really good. 7 home runs, solid slash line. More a table setter. It makes no sense to have Ernie Clement hitting second. Honestly, he should just lead off if you want to have him up there. And then have Vladdy hit second. Have Akamoto hit second, maybe. Exploit his power upside a little bit. It's not a great lineup for the Blue Jays. They're just that pesky team that I've been referring to. And you can see that through these strikeout numbers, right? Look at, that's better than average. These are half the league average. That's even better. Alejandro Kirk, believably low strikeout. He did this throughout last year, did that throughout the year before. So just because it's 22 plate appearances for Kirk so far, don't think that that's not real for Alejandro Kirk to be a very low strikeout guy and just add to the peskiness of this team. The only guys who are vulnerable to the strikeout in this lineup at all are Akamoto and Davis Schneider. Could be a rough day for Ryan Weathers. You've got Vladdy lurking here at 13 plus in the home run model, even Springer at 11.9, Kaz Akamoto at 10.2 to exploit all that premium contact that Weathers has been allowing. Kirk can also drive the ball. In addition to being low strikeout, medium walk last year and a ton of balls in play, he had a 9.5% barrel rate, 50.8% hard hits last season, 15 homers, a 282, 348, 421 slash line. That's a star caliber catcher. It's not a star in terms of, a 30 home run guy, but that's an excellent line for a catcher, especially when he's this low strikeout and just, that consistent at putting balls in play. Akamoto's just a power option, but he's not priced like a guy who has 13 home runs already this season. 3,100 on FanDuel at third base to boot. Totally works. Nathan Luke's on-base percentage option, correlated scoring option, but he's hitting ahead of Miles Straw, Davis Schneider, and Andres Jimenez, so that diminishes the quality for Luke's. 311, 362, 396. That's honestly the guy who ought to be leading off in this spot. It's just lefty not going to do him any favors in that role, so isn't. But it's problematic because these guys are less than likely to drive him in. Davis Schneider every now and again gets into 7.66 in the home run model. He's in the lineup because there's a lefty on the mound. He's second base eligible for cheap. Just a mixer, a dart throw at a little bit of power. He's been bad on the season, over 89 plate appearances. Hit 11 home runs and did get on base at a 361 clip. Did little else of extreme interest, over 227 last year. On this side of the platoon option, for the dead min on both sides, you could probably do worse than Davis Schneider if you're building with the Blue Jays, but he's not a draw to go to this team. And then Andres Jimenez has a couple decent fantasy days, but overall not a great option. I am having a problem with how I want to rank this one. It's probably Weathers, but he's in a lot of trouble. Trey Yesovich, please, potentially not in a great spot if the Yankees just do their thing with, again, at least 6 very, very good bats still in this lineup. You could easily reverse that. And then probably Blue Jays above Yankees, just because I see more downside for Weathers just on all the upside attributes that the Blue Jays have. But not a good day for any of those 4 things, oddly. Dodgers, White Sox. Let's see if we got this one. Kind of a crucial lineup to know whether or not we get Ohtani today. It's also probably why we don't have it yet. Doesn't look like we got it. So Ohtani came out of the game last night with knee pain. They called it problematic. They said he could easily be in the lineup today. Teams typically give you a good report, and then start bringing it down into worse and worse reports. If he's not in the lineup, you don't play him. Obviously, it's a big ding to the Dodgers' quality, but they've still got tremendous bats to throw at a terrible pitcher in Anthony Kay. Kay striking out 16.5%, allowing a ton of barrels, 3.58% home run that he's probably lucky to be at. I will note, actually, I said he's a terrible pitcher, and that's kind of unfair. 104 marked by Stuff Plus, actually above average across all three of the plus categories. But he's pitched to a 4.40 ERA. He has a 5x FIP underneath it. So I'm comfy sticking with that assessment. And it's the Dodgers over here, one of the top end stacks of the day, even if Ohtani isn't in there. It's projected with him. They'll come down the board slightly from their second, third position. Where are they? Third, I think. Yeah. 2 on FanDuel, actually ahead of the Rockies on FanDuel, behind the Rockies on DraftKings, actually showing a little bit of value just because of the monster upside, third on your home run board. Lots of good reasons to go to Dodgers. 65-43 for Ohtani. If he's in the mix, first base eligible on DK is great to just be able to move him around positionally. 13 home runs, 305, 421, 543. Maybe, slightly off the mark in terms of the home run pace, but all these numbers have erased any issues about, Ohtani's not hitting as well as we expected him to. It happened in a hurry too. 412 WOBA, 418 xWOBA under the surface, 165 WRC plus. Let's just show Ohtani. Hope he's here today. 54-39 is not unfair for as good as Andy Paz has been. 132 WRC plus on the season, 15 homers. Absolute excellent option in the 2 spot. Freddie Freeman, good lefty first baseman. I don't care about lefty with Freddie against most lefties. Certainly not this one. 5,036, 10 home runs, excellent slash line. Freddie's a superstar. Mookie Betts is cheap, 44.29. What are we doing? Come on. We know that Mookie Betts is better than a $2,900 shortstop. FanDuel. It's a great option. I don't care about these 149 plate appearances. He's still got 6 home runs. The barrel rate, the hard hit rates for Mookie aren't really all that crazy robust the last few years anyway. So I'm not concerned about the hard hit. Technically, the barrels are actually up a little bit. Strikeouts at 11.4, 8.1 look a lot like these past few seasons. Just some misfortune, some missed time in the mix. 330 xWOBA, 269 actual to illustrate that point. That's still Mookie Betts. Take advantage of those cheap prices. That's a terrific shortstop one-off to consider. FanDuel, DraftKings, either way. Kyle Tucker, an underperformer right now. 320 actual WOBA, 323 xWOBA. Both of those marks, including the underlying one. Both of those are even underperforming. Has missed his usual premium contact. We know there's a superstar in there somewhere. I do still like him to emerge at some point this season and earn his $500 million. 4,800 on DraftKings. Prices come down. 31 on FanDuel. It's come down even further. 11.92 in the home run model. That's another elite lefty hitter. You do not worry about Kyle Tucker against basically any lefty. I don't know what it looks like this year, but over time, it's never really been a problem. Alex Call, solid mixer against any lefty. He can put the ball in play. Not a particularly hard hitter, but a guy who can hit for average, get on base, reset the table for the bottom of the lineup. If you get Miguel Rojas, Santiago Espinal, Chucky Robinson, all those guys just kind of mixers. Robinson, Deadman priced on FanDuel. You don't have them right now on the DraftKings slate, which is unfortunate. If you could get a cheap catcher in the mix for the Dodgers, that would have value. But plenty of upside for at least Alex Call. The other 3 guys are just mixers at the bottom. White Sox running into rookie Sasaki. Sasaki's been pretty decent. 4.03 ERA, 3.88 xFIP shows the quality, 3.83 Sierra. Striking out 24.3, walking 8.5. Like I said before, when you're talking about aces, you want to be talking about 20% in your strikeout minus walk rate. So this is not great. It kind of jibes with the, approaching 4 xFIP and Sierra numbers. These are a little bit better than that as an indicator. But I think he can improve on this. I think he can improve on the strikeout rate based on the swinging strike rate that he's put up so far this season. And he's found the strikeout in recent starts. A lot of that is reflecting the first 7 starts of the season. Last time out, he struck out 10, for example. That's against the high strikeout Angels, but it's a phenomenal start. 2 hit, no runs, 10 Ks, 2 walks over 7 innings. Didn't get the win. Got the quality start for you, though. 7 Ks the game before that, just 4 against the Brewers, but it's the Brewers, 8 against the Angels again. Maybe it's a little inflated, honestly, in recent games by those 2 Angels games. 5-inning day. That day, he gave up 2 earned runs. 7-inning day. Gave up 1 earned run on 4 hits. So he's been really good against the Angels twice is really what it is. But overall, talented kid, very good stuff. Several points above average with at least 1 wipeout. So I like the upside. I don't love the looks of the White Sox. They do have Colson Montgomery in the lineup. They've got an interesting Braden Montgomery switch hitting prospect who hit a walk-off home run in his debut performance and has been good in the 2 games he's played. Chase Meadroth is an interesting contact hitter who's put up some decent numbers for fantasy this year at 107 WRC plus. Antonacci's interesting in the leadoff role at 285, 387, 376 with a 122. Solid 374 xWOBA to go with that based on a 6.5% barrel. Very low strikeout, a lot of balls in play with the medium walk rate. There's playability on the White Sox, but with a number of other higher quality, gonna be low owned, gonna be sneaky, gonna fit together really well with your go-to lineups. I don't really like the White Sox here at a 4-1-3. Wouldn't shock if they had an okay day. If Sasaki comes out and is the bad erratic version of Roki Sasaki, then it could be an upside day for the White Sox. But he hasn't, by and large, been that guy this year. You can see a little bit of that guy still in the location plus number. If I'm building with these guys, I've talked about Andrew Benintendi numerous times. 234, 292, 396. A 327 xWOBA reflects a little bit of quality from the contact he's made. 10.9% barrel, 47.4% hard hit. So he's been hitting the ball with authority. Hasn't really resulted in much. I don't believe he's going to continue to hit the ball that hard, although he did last year in terms of barrels. But you can see the difference in consistency in the hard hit rate, and those are who he's always been. So he's cheap for kind of fishing for that premium contact against downside Roki, and downside Roki does allow a fair amount of premium contact and a 4% hard hit, home run rate so far. So I probably would include Benny. This is an exercise in putting together a 5-man DraftKings lineup. So I would probably include Benny for the 3. I definitely want Antonacci at 41. I want Benny. I want Montgomery at third. Montgomery going into third base for me probably is a blocker or is definitely a blocker from Vargas. And the purpose of this would probably be to get to a higher end shortstop. Maybe it's just a 3-man. And if you're using those 3, it's a $3,900 average and 11.7 total for the 3-man. That's reasonable. You could easily bring that down a little bit by going to Braden instead of Sam Antonacci and just grab all 3 of those guys in a run. And that's $3,600 a piece, 10.8 for the 3-man. Meadroth fits into that equation. Jacob Gonzalez from the left side, 31 pretty effective plate appearances so far on the season. Did he have any previous? No. I'm just looking at this because in the raw sense, you do have a lot of cheap prices to work with here. What am I doing? Gonzalez, was having a monster year at AAA. Age 24 at AAA, back end to where you'd want him. 238 plate appearances this season, 19 home runs, 8 stolen bases, 317, 419, 668. Home run on the board already in the show. Usable at worst. First base on DraftKings, that's probably where you want him. Shortstop on FanDuel, especially when you're already getting Colson Montgomery there, that's problematic positioning. Tristan Peters has been usable throughout the season, hitting for average, getting on base, a good correlated scoring piece. If he is hitting 8th, so that's a reasonable option to bring back around to the top. But you're already using Antonacci in some way from the top there, so it's not great to double up on that, get me on base, provide correlated scoring option. So it's probably either you use Antonacci or you use Tristan Peters from the bottom of the lineup as a wraparound leadoff guy. Vargas is playable and is having a decent year, 16 home runs, 9 steals, good fantasy days, getting on at a great clip. But given the price, if I'm looking to use this team as a cheap option, again, it's probably more frequently going to be Colson Montgomery using the third base share there. So that would be like 1, 2, 3, probably 4. And then I think just Jacob Gonzalez. That probably makes a lot of sense. That's a 5-man, 34.80 a piece, 17.4 total. And again, you look at that. That gives me Langoliers, one of the outfielders. So maybe, again, it's like a 5-2 with the Athletics in a potentially differentiated approach for just who you combine with the Athletics. Not a lot of people, I don't think, in a 4-1-3 implied total are going to be using a 5-man White Sox. This is in no way a strong endorsement of the White Sox. I believe they're the bottom-ranked team on the stacks board. But they're usable with those prices and with some of the quality of bats there. This is easily Dodgers, Roki Sasaki, probably White Sox bats, and wouldn't use Anthony Kay here. I don't see any reason to go to him from the bargain bin on either site. He's just not good enough. Your Phillies, your poor Phillies coming in below a 3-run total. Ooh, we got to get Gabriel Rincones on the board. Gabriel Rincones, I would imagine. Gabriel is lefty. There you go. Dead min price. Got a back end projection, so he's got a projection here. 3.52 in the home run model, not giving him an awful lot. 6.54. I'll look him up. I'll make sure that we're fair there on the back end, but that's kind of commensurate with the bottom of the lineup spot for those projections. So far this year, in 96 plate appearances, bouncing from low A to triple A, I would expect that means he was recovering from an injury. I haven't looked into him at all. 1 home run and 4 stolen bases. Bad 215 average, but a 344 on base is adequate. 338 xWOBA makes him interesting over that minor league stretch. 25 playing down in the minors. This is his first opportunity in the show. Back last year, over 506 AAA plate appearances as a 24-year-old, 18 home runs, 21 steals, 370 on base. Again, robust on base percentage, 355 xWOBA under a 361 actual. Walked 15.8% of the time last year, and double-digit walk rates at every stop throughout his entire minor league career. So a kid who, reasonably could be expected to be on base and contribute something ahead of a struggling JT Realmuto, ahead of Justin Crawford. That's not great. But if you're stacking Phillies as a purely contrarian thing, and we'll get to the opposing pitcher in a moment, not a bad consideration at the dead min to bring back around to Kyle Schwarber. There's at least loose connectivity there. And then maybe it's like Schwarber Harper. And that min price at least reduces my 3-man down to a $4,500 average, a 13.6 total, and renders you a usable Phillies 3-man with their 2 best players and kid with decent minor league numbers. That would probably be my one and only approach to building with Phillies against Jacob Misiorowski, just one of the best pitchers in baseball right now. You do have some cheap pricing, though. You got to throw that into the mix around Alec Bohm, who's been surging since the beginning of May. Hit his 8th home run last night. Brendan Marsh. We still might get the upside home run season out of Alec Bohm, by the way. It's going to be ugly in the slash line compared to years past, but he only hit 11 last year, and he's already at 8 for this season as much as he's struggled. Don't be shocked if we end up with a decent home run total out of Alec Bohm that we were calling for at the beginning of the year. And then Brandon Marsh is awfully cheap for a guy who's slashing 326, 361, 504. It's just Miz is wiping everybody off the board in terms of opposing hitters. 1.50 ERA, not all that defied by a 2.21 xFIP, 2.28 Sierra. Remember what I said before about strikeout minus walk rate for an ace? We want to be looking for 20%. He's at 31.1. Jacob Misiorowski, really, really good. 38.4% strikeout, 7.3% walk. This is like Spencer Strider peak form type numbers. This is how good this kid is. He just throws the ball 100 plus miles an hour, and you can't hit it. Elite option, 12,000, 11.3. We did talk about the Phillies and their ability to draw a walk, but Miz, not a problematic walk rate, and really only it's Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper that we're worried about in terms of that. They're 2 best bats. There's power lurking there, but Miz has been spectacular at limiting it, inducing weak and medium contact when guys are even able to catch up with the ball. Just an 11.4 degree average launch. You can't get under the pitch effectively. 124, 24 points above average stuff plus rating. So Misiorowski all day. Phillies wildly contrarian. They're going to be low owned, but that's not a good team to go to in this spot. Sub 3 implied total does a lot of that lifting. Struggling Trey Turner, cheap for being Trey Turner, but he's been awful this year. Maybe a guy who could put the ball in play 3 times against Miz if he finds a good day, but not a lot of there. Bryson Stott, mix and match piece from the left side. 6 homers, 12 steals is at least good for fantasy days. JT Realmuto's really struggling. Justin Crawford, really struggling. The Brewers much more in play against what is now an opener and then Andrew Painter. Painter's been just nowhere near the pitcher they thought they were getting here. High-end prospect and remains a talented kid. You can see some of it coming through in location and pitching. Plus, even the stuff is at least at league average, a fraction above. So there's a pitcher here. I think he's going to be very good when it's all said and done. But I think right now needs more seasoning. Running him into a Brewers team that just gets on base like crazy. Excellent sequencing team, 4.64 implied total. Just not a good spot to be Andrew Painter. And now you don't even have a shot for a quality start on FanDuel for the 6,700. So he's just not on the board, really. Brewers bats most certainly on the board at that total against this pitcher. Yet another team that mixes in kind of as a fit to go with other teams. The problem that you're going to run into there is the Brewers are extremely high priced for this spot. Very difficult to put together, even just, within stacking Brewers, let alone within, stacking them with like the A's or one of the other premium teams. So it's going to be challenging. Those prices are why you saw the Brewers 25th ranked for value on FanDuel, 26th ranked for value on DraftKings, despite being the 12th ranked projected team, the 11th highest Vegas total, and a pretty good 6th ranked by home runs. One more time, since we're here. It's our free month contest that's going on. I got to come back after the show. Leave a comment in chat. Multi-day contest. First to 5 correct home run picks. Your scoreboard is right here. Loyalty Chisel currently in the lead with 2. Cujo has 1. Nobody else has a correct one. Rules are you got to use the same YouTube handle every single day. 1 pick per person per day. Has to come from the slate we discuss on the show like my picks do. Can't use my pick. Otherwise, free for all. The other rule is only 1 Otani usage. Judge isn't here right now, but I'll put him on the board in case this runs oddly long. The reason I'm applying that rule is because that's the rule I use for myself. I only pick those guys once per year because they're just too obvious any given slate. But that's our contest. Win yourself a free month of Rotoscouts, also scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Still a few free first weeks on a weekly available. Go give it a test balloon. See how you like the projections and the content, guys. Doesn't cost you anything. Sign up, cancel it immediately. You'll have your week, and then it won't renew. I'd like it if you stay around. It's under $1 a day, all in, access to all 4 major sports. Breaking down the Brewers, this interesting offense at high prices. Christian Yelich, star caliber player, 286, 356, 435, former MVP, 4 home runs, 5 steals. Got his power back in a nice way last year. I will note, a little bit of a dip in premium contact in just 163 plate appearances with some time missed this year. 294 xWOB under a 347 actual. The actual is a lot more the player that we know and love. 294, a little point of concern there. Strikeout slightly up. Walk is about normal, but down the last 2 years over who he used to be in terms of walk, and the strikeouts have bounced. I think that's the exchange that you got for the power. Excellent option in any sense, but maybe a point of concern there in the ongoing. Jackson Churio, just a burgeoning star. 6 home runs, 5 steals. All of what he's doing right now is real. Easy go-to piece, appropriately 55 on DK. 42 is expensive on FanDuel, but he's worth it. He's an excellent option and going to grow into just a superstar. Bryce Terang, good option at second base. Very expensive at 41 on FanDuel, 57 on DK. Same deal, 8.2% barrel. Nice improvement year over year, 2 years running now. 10 homers, 11 steals. Nothing bad to say about Terang except for the pricing. William Contreras, excellent catcher, 5,037. If you're just looking for a catcher who will probably be under-owned for his talent and his matchup at a high price, William Contreras is your man. It's a good one-off option to keep in mind from the opposite of those cheap one-off options that I mentioned before. Jake Bauers, 49-41. I bet you Jake Bauers doesn't get close to what his ownership ought to be based on the numbers he's put up, the talent that he has. Lefty bat with some thunder, 13.6%. Barrels, 54.4% hard hits. He's hit 12 on the season. He's also stolen 5 bases. That's an attribute for Bauers as well, as is his 376 on base percentage. Jake Bauers putting up star caliber numbers and getting no real love for it, although the pricing has noticed. He's 49-41. Garrett Mitchell, nobody's noticed. I've talked about him a few times running 356 on base. This is an interesting player for DFS. He hasn't really found the home run stroke, but he's got a 14.7% barrel that says he's gonna. 339 actual WOBA with a 329 xWOBA. I would expect no ongoing consistency because he strikes out like crazy, but there's a 3 true outcome potential guy here. He draws a lot of walks right now against those strikeouts, so he's offsetting a little bit of that between the walks and the premium contact that he makes. That's a decent offset price guy that can help at least a little. Like if you're doing, let's say you go right there. What about that little pocket of Brewers as a 3-man on DraftKings? You're obviously leaving their 3 best players on the table, but you're leaving the 3 most expensive guys and taking 3 guys who are arguably underpriced. That's a $4,600 average, 13.8 for that 3-man. Might be a challenging fit. It would leave, like, if you're thinking A's again, it would leave like Langoliers on the table. You probably go outfield with Bauers because you want to get to like Kurtz at first base. So it precludes you, it limits you to only 2 of the A's outfielders, but then you can work around that challenge and embrace maybe some of the lower owned A's. They're probably a better fit with other teams, but that's the one I've been using as an example. That's a neat little 3-man at I wouldn't call it low at 4,600 a piece, but there's upside for that price in that little pocket. Frelick, Renifo, David Hamilton, mix and match guys at the absolute best. You want one of them in there. They would help with pricing concerns, of course, too. Like if you went their, let's say their 3, 4, 5. Could I get away with that? 46.20 a piece, so 47 a piece on my 5-man. 23-1 feels a bit hefty for what I'm getting there. If you move to Yelich over Churio, maybe take Turang and put Churio back in. That's 3 outfielders, a catcher, and a third baseman. 45, so 4,600 a piece, 22.7 total. That's challenging. That is a difficult stack to build on DK and put together with like the other premium options. Same deal applies on FanDuel. Miz all day long. Brewers bat's not a bad option. Phillies bat's looking like a bad option, but probably coming in ahead of the opener and Andrew Painter. When I hit the get lineups button, you guys hit the like button. Not repeatedly, but if it's your first time, if you're yet to hit it, anytime I hit that lineups button, you guys hit that like button. See if we get the Astros in. We did not. Tatsuya Imai going up against Luinder Avila. Neither guy is what I'd call a go-to, interesting, great-looking option on this slate. Both these teams are coming in at extreme totals in hitter-friendly conditions in Kansas City. But there's a path through which either one of these guys could surprise. Avila striking out 20.9 against way too many walks right now, but has been interesting for his ability to limit premium contact. 31% hard hits, 87.1 miles an hour of exit velocity on just a 10.4 degree average launch is noteworthy and makes it realistic that he's limited major league hitters to just 1.49% home runs. That's an attribute that if you look back in time, that continues through various levels. 103 marked by Stuff Plus also, so not bad in terms of what his stuff actually looks like. He's going up against a fairly interesting Astros lineup, 22.4% strikeout. Maybe there's a couple Ks on the table, but those walks are probably going to give him a problem, and that's where ability to keep the ball in the yard probably negated by the walks and just the Astros' ability to put the ball in play and exploit those walks. So I think Avila runs into problems there. He's awfully cheap at 55, though, if you're fishing for just pure underneath the bargain bin in the dirt and grime kind of options on DK. He's a dart. Don't expect anything, though. Imai, 24% strikeouts, but a problematic 15.3% walk rate, 8.67 K minus BB. Pitching to a 5.24 ERA, but a 4.55 xFIP, 4.75 Sierra. There's not a lot there, but he's another guy who has at least kept the ball to a reasonable trajectory. Just some mistakes baked in here. 3.33% home runs in his 8 starts. His 34.1 innings is probably, or 34 and a third rather, is probably pretty realistic. But he broke off a couple interesting starts. Last 3 starts against the Athletics, 5 innings, 2 earned runs, 8 Ks, 3 walks, no home run allowed. Okay day, got the win. 6 innings of quality against the Brewers, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, allowed a home run, but only 2 earned on 3 hits. Didn't get the win that day. In fact, took the loss, but that's a quality start. Just 2 strikeouts and 4 walks against the Rangers on May 25th at Texas. We were on him that day. It wasn't a great fantasy day because of that low strikeout total, but other than the 4 walks, he actually no-hit them over that stretch. 20 hitters, no hits, no runs, obviously. So he's been moderately good over the last 3 outings. It's just there's a walks issue there. The Royals, there's more strikeout in this lineup this year, but some of their better bats are fairly low strikeout. There's some ability to draw the walk, but it's not what I would call a patient collection of hitters. A little back and forth on Imai. I don't expect a good day. There's nothing about the stuff, the location, or the pitching plus numbers that would indicate that he's actually talented. At 63, though, if you're going extreme bargain bin, he's a dart. So both these guys loosely on the board, but we greatly prefer bats in this game. Extremely so. I don't think either of these guys is on your FanDuel board. Astros bats. Jeremy Pena at 41.34, reasonably priced, at least on DK. That's a usable shortstop piece because you're talking about a hitter who hits for good average, puts the ball in play, doesn't really strike out, gets on base, good correlated scoring option ahead of one of the very best bats in baseball. There's a lot of upside in a 2-man combination of Pena and Alvarez. There's a lot of upside in short stacking this team or on FanDuel full stacking this team. There's a lot of upside in just a one-off of Pena at short. That is a very playable shortstop. 116 WRC plus, a nice 365 xWOBA as well. Jordan, ridiculous. 22 home runs, elite. Excellent performer in every category. 491 xwOBA. The 447 actual is outrageous. 491 is just mind-bending. Christian Walker, 39-36, has hit 16 home runs already this season. The strikeout rate has gone up, but stabilized so far at 21%. He's been right around there over the last 2 weeks. A lot of premium contact. Definitely a very good power hitter over the last few seasons. Had been diminished each of the last few. That's why he's no longer at Diamondback. 318 xwOBA shows a little bit of the overperformance on the season with that 351 actual. But I continue to believe, especially at that cheap DraftKings price, 36 on FanDuel is not doing you any favors. But that's also the good version of Christian Walker's price, so it's not wrong. Isaac, let's see how this ballpark plays. With the moved fences, I'm not sure how Kansas City's going to play for Isaac's power. This used to be an extreme pitcher park. But they moved the fences in at the beginning of the year. I just want to see what that corner looks like for him now. Nope, still a bad spot for him. Actually, I shouldn't say bad. He's got 9 home runs in this ballpark. He would have 9 home runs per X home run numbers. In his home park in Houston, he would have 12. So this is a okay average-ish spot for Isaac to do his thing and just plunk one into the right next to the left field foul pole. He's playable because he also gets on base. He's low strikeout, puts the ball in play, draws walks at a fairly effective clip, 332 on base, 109 WRC plus. Jose Altuve, 39-29, doing Jose Altuve things. There's not a lot of quality to talk about, probably in the diminished end of his career, but he's cheap. He's playable at second. Outfield also works. Joey Loperfido has some upside if he makes his way into the lineup, but typically you're looking at Joey for a little bit of power potential, maybe put one in the seats. He's capable of drawing the walk from time to time, but over the last 2 seasons in the majors hasn't really done so. It is part of the skill set, but I don't really like calling it out, except for the fact that Abiel is walking a lot of people. Cam Smith has been hitting the ball very hard all year, has not that much to show for it in terms of the slash line. 7 home runs, 8 steals. There's quality there. Nice 338 xwOBA to show the underlying quality. Taylor Trammell, we've talked about. Underrated potential option in this lineup. 76 okay plate appearances. Only a 98 WRC plus. A very bad 252 xwOBA under the surface, but slashing 275, 333, 362, and a nice skill set to fill fantasy categories as just a cheap throw-in guy. And then Christian Vasquez is just a mixer at catcher. On the Royal side, Carter Jensen in the leadoff spot once again, despite that 284 on base percentage. 9.1% walk is okay. They've got other guys that fit there a little bit better. Why not give Vinny a shot in the leadoff role if you're looking to do that? I don't really get it. The kids hit the ball hard, got out to 8 home runs pretty quickly in 232 chances. Sal Perez is in the lineup. Sal missed 2 games over the weekend and took a day off yesterday for this team. Has a ongoing thumb issue. But back in our lives today, he plays basically every day. That's why it's noteworthy when he's not in the lineup. But 3,400, 2,700 for the alternate catcher hitting down lineup. Between the two, I mean, it's difficult to say which one you really want to get to. 9 home runs and total underperformance across the board for Sal. Both guys terrible xwOBA and wOBA. Both guys bad by WRC plus. Sal greatly diminished contact, but his diminished contact looks like Jensen's actual contact so far. So difficult call to make. But if you're going to this team, I do think you want one of those 2 catchers, particularly on DK. Bobby Witt's a superstar. You absolutely want him. 9 homers, 24 steals, a 119 WRC plus. Vinny, we've talked quite a bit about throughout the season, so I'll spare you, but know that he's underperforming his talent, and he's only 38-28 across sites. Jack Caglianone continues to be cheap, 34-28, despite a 279, 351, and 457 slash line. I think Jack is kind of getting just dinged here for this team being not great. I don't really understand why his price hasn't gone up. 124 WRC plus, a 356 wOBA, a 363 xwOBA. 15.6% barrels, 57.4% hard hits. What exactly are we missing about Jack Caglianone that he's not priced like the burgeoning star that he is? That's an excellent player. Take advantage. That is super, super cheap for a kid who's very good and on his way toward getting a lot better. Michael Massey's a good mixer at second base, hits the ball squarely, 8.3% barrel, 44% hard hit over what is now 154 plate appearances. 6 home runs. The slash line's nothing to write home about. Neither is the xwOBA. The actual wOBA is also bad, but a 193 ISO, some extra base hits in the mix from the left side against a righty who is all over the place. Cameron Misner and Isaac Collins, mix and match guys down the bottom of the lineup. Misner put up good numbers for putting the ball in play, succeeding with batting average, getting on base throughout the minors, still very cheap at 22-21. Usable piece if you're already going Royals, not a draw to the Royals. But they're an interesting squad today. Caglianone, Witt, probably the top two priorities. I skipped over Michael Garcia completely, player I like a lot. Underperforming on the season for his talent and for what we saw from him last year. By weighted on base and xWOBA, it's not a wide margin. 312 actual is below average. 327 xWOBA is above average. But he's even better than those marks, is my point. Low strikeout, low strikeout, medium walk. A lot of well-struck balls in play when he's going right. It's a good option at third base if you're going to this team. Priority 1, priority 2. One of the catchers. Sal's cheaper. I'll say Sal. I mean, you could go very obvious and just go Vinny and Michael. It's a 5-man for 4,100 apiece, 2,500 total. You're getting the 5 best Royals in there. It's not crazy, especially at a very hefty total. Either one of these teams could creep into the mix as like a spoiler to the obvious teams on the board, or as a very strong contender for second stacks, short stacks, one-offs, etc. Royals, Astros, despite the totals being the other way around. How do I have it on the board? Damn it, I have it Astros, Royals, and they're right next to each other. Oh, that pisses me off. It probably is Royals, Astros. Just giving Avila's limited sample size ability so far to limit the home run ball a little bit of credit. You can see it reflected in the home run model. Both very, very close, as you saw on that stacks board, though. The pitchers are only potentially viable on DraftKings. Neither one actually looks good, but those are very cheap bargain bin prices. Know that you're taking a lot of risk if you do that, but they'll be very, very low owned. Neither guy's likely to put up, even on a good day, a crazy good fantasy score. It'll just be okay points per dollar. Joanio Suarez, loyalty chisel, was my home run pick of the day. So probably not one that was going to be a common pick anyway. That Reds ballpark is a absolute launching pad, but I don't know that he was necessarily drawing the eye. Good job last night, by the way. Good job last 2 days. Alex Call leading off for the Dodgers. That's a great little spot. Yeah, I mentioned Cole's quality against the lefty and against the bad lefty like this, 29-25. That's interesting. But that does mean no Shohei Ohtani. So definite downside play there for the Dodgers as compared to the guy who was in that spot in the projected lineup. You do have Max Muncy in here, who I don't think we talked about. There's a lefty on the mound, but there was no real reason to not have Max in that projected. Monster power upside, on base all the time. One of my favorite 3 true outcomes bats in the league, and he's a little bit better than the 3 true outcomes guy. Miguel Rojas in the mix down here for just a cheap guy who could provide some correlated scoring, but not at all reliable. Just low strikeout, medium walk, so a lot of balls in play. Not particularly well struck balls, though. Santiago Espinal maybe gets on base, steals you a bag, not a premium guy. And then Chucky Robinson, just cheap catcher and only available on FanDuel. But Call against a lower end lefty, kind of interesting because he finds a lot of success on the weak side platoon. But yeah, no Ohtani. Jordan's home run number is so low, Larry, because it's impacted by the numbers that Avila's put up in a small sample, but also going back through his minor league career, his ability to induce weak and medium contact that he's shown as an attribute so far. So 31% hard hits, 87.1 miles an hour of exit velo. Could it have been a little bit higher than less than halfway to the magic number? Absolutely. Is it at least somewhat justifiable? I think so. But yeah, that's Jordan Alvarez. So know that you can goose that by a little bit if you go by home run numbers. But like I said, everything that I said about the Astros home runs and the conditions, I probably will go in and put my thumb on that now that you bring it up, because the conditions definitely justify giving them a little bit more upside. But don't be surprised if the Astros go homerless in good spot, but still score some runs that Blaze Jordan not available on DraftKings. That's weird that they would take him out of the player pool. First we've seen of him this year, but wait a minute. Who am I thinking of? Is Blaze Jordan's not debuted? Who am I thinking of? Blaze Alexander. Wrong Blaze. Excuse me. Blaze Jordan is that kid that years ago had that home run video, right? That's him, isn't it? When he was like 12. Yeah, that was him. That's all right. So this is Blaze Jordan's debut. Excuse me. I was talking about the wrong Blaze. Yet another potential upside young player for this interesting cards team. He is available on FanDuel. 2,000 at third base makes him interesting. Not on the DraftKings board, unfortunately. So yeah, this is from, I'll drop the link in chat. This is from 9 years ago when he was 13 years old, that YouTube video of him blasting a 500-foot home run. Went viral back then. He was picked in our Dynasty League that same year because we have a pretty deep minor league system. Finally making his debut. But he's had a interesting run-up through the minors. In 544 minor league plate appearances last season, 19 home runs. Drove in 99, not that we care about ribbies, but that's a nice total. 270, 331, 450 slash line, a 111 WRC plus. This is just as a 22-year-old playing primarily in AAA. 176 AA plate appearances were in that mix. So very, very good season. Low strikeout, reasonable walk rate. He struck out at just a 11% rate while putting up those numbers as a 22-year-old, which is honestly a little young for AAA. Or, if you're at AAA at 22, you're a potential star. This year in AAA as a 23-year-old already has 11 home runs on the board in 252 chances, 11.5% strikeout, 313, 378, 548. Monster uptick in his slash line. Blaze Jordan just ready to go. And that strikeout rate, only in 2 very small sample stops on his way up through the minors did he have above a 20% strikeout rate. For his minor league career, it's been excellent. Can I total these? No, minor league, it doesn't let you total them, unfortunately. So yeah, that's a really interesting mixer to debut in this already pretty darn good Cardinals team. And he's nice and cheap to help offset some of these guys. JJ Weatherholt from the top. They're going up against Joe Ryan today. Ryan's obviously tremendous. Good strikeout pitcher, 27.3%. Good managing walks this year. Nice 22.1 strikeout minus walk. Again, this is an ace. 307 ERA, 3.59 xFIP that we're not that concerned about. 3.26 SIERA to split the difference. A lot of barrels. Extreme fly ball pitcher. A lot of hard hits. Leads to sometimes some wonky home run days. That becomes your downside with Joe Ryan, but he's managed that very effectively at 2.27 this year. Last year it was 3.77 on similar kind of contact. Year before 3.53. So don't be surprised if a Jordan Walker goes out and hits a home run, if a Blaze Jordan hits a home run in his debut. All these other guys, you've got reasonable power upside that's emerging for Alec Burleson this season with 11 home runs. He's also just been tremendous across the slash line, 135 WRC plus. You've got Lars Nootbaar back in the lineup now. He's been driving the ball in his 26 plate appearances, 2 home runs. That's a guy with a little bit of power, a little believable barrel and hard hit rate in an ongoing sense from the left side. He is cheap on DraftKings, affordable on FanDuel. There's upside in these cards. I would say probably a little bit more because the top 4 guys on FanDuel are pretty expensive. On DraftKings, you only have a big price tag on Jordan Walker, arguably underpriced every single day, underpriced where you need catchers. And then Weatherholt reasonable at second. And then Nootbaar, that would be my preferred card stack. It's obvious going top down. 21-1, 42 average, so 42-20 average, so 4,300 total. Would be reasonable, by the way, to offset Ivan Herrera and go for price and go like this and take Jimmy Crooks down there at 21. That brings me down to a $3,900 average, 19-2 total for the 5-man from the cards. Crooks is an interesting up-and-coming prospect. Hit his first home run, I want to say last night, might have been the night before, but this week. That's an interesting player for 2,100 if you're going to this team already. It doesn't give you a reason to go to this team, but if you're there already and you can't afford that stack, the first one I built, pivot from Ivan down to Jimmy. That kind of makes sense. Mason Wynn in between those guys is a overrated shortstop talent. I continue to think that in the long term, in the short term, he's just not good. Nathan Church at the bottom, solid mixer. He's put up some decent fantasy days with 5 homers, 4 steals on the season. Substandard on base, pretty bad through the weighted on base departments, and just a 90 WRC plus. So you're just throwing darts at one good random fantasy day against a very, very good pitcher, but at least he's left-handed and cheap. Going up against Kyle Leahy should provide some upside for the Twins. They come in at a 4.86 implied. Leahy, 59 innings over 12 starts, a 4.42 ERA, 4.34 xFIP. It's about who he is, 4.25 run type pitcher. Very low strikeout at 17.5. No swinging strikes. A lot of premium contact available. We're over the line at 10.8. We're over the line at 91.9, and we're way over the line at 49% hard hit. His one saving grace is that 8.2 degree average launch that he's limiting hitters to. So that's knocking Byron Buxton down, kind of similar to Yordan Alvarez. Despite all the good contact he's allowed, he is only at a 2.97% home run rate because a lot of it is driven into the ground or on a low trajectory fly ball. That's the one thing that's been saving his life. And even with that, he's been bad at giving up runs. So potential limiter, but no real reason to think that a guy who's as good as Byron Buxton couldn't hit a home run off the kid. Trevor Larnach at 39 at 29. Okay season. 365 on base has been his best attribute so far. 338 WOBA, but a 318 xWOBA. The power's kind of abandoned him. In years past, he's been better at putting the barrel on the ball. We could see a little bit of a surge for power, but it's not a great day to go find it against a pitcher who keeps the ball down. Nice and cheap to lead things off in a very usable offense, though. Buxton's a star. You just play him when you go to this team. Easy. Cody Clemens, nice positional flexibility for just 3,000 on FanDuel. That's an asset if you're going to this team, and potentially a reason to keep them in mind as like all right, I used a really high price pitcher. I used a really high price first stack. What can I do around the edges? Maybe he's a one-off. Maybe he's part of a short stack with like just those 3, brings it to 33. That's probably a little high to put together for that scenario. Maybe you go like Royce, Cody. Obviously, if I take Buxton out, I eliminate this price problem, but I don't want to do that. 9.7 total for a 3-man. I mean, it's less than ideal, but maybe you go like that. It's probably best used as a move them all around the board, second, third outfield, $3,000 one-off from this team. Solid 13.4% barrel, 43.6% hard hit, 9 homers, 6 steals. Cody Clemens, just good. Josh Bell, mix and match kind of a guy, 7 home runs, pretty substandard slash line. No real reason to go to Josh Bell outside of the occasionally well-struck ball. Royce Lewis, good mixer, 29, 27. Going through it over these 140 plate appearances, but missed a fair amount of time. 10.7% barrel in line with years past where he's had outbursts for power. 4 home runs early in the season. 272, 290 in the weighted on base departments is problematic. Very up and down player, but any given slate, we could see an upside day, and he fills third base at a cheap price. Caratini, player who in the past has put cheap bat on ball from the catcher spot for us. That's a usable option if you're already going to this team. Hasn't been particularly good this year, over 187 chances. I like him to find it eventually, or at least in a here and there, any given slate sense. He's always low strikeout too, so you get a lot of that bat on ball. But the quality's been diminished a little bit early this season. No real reason to take him out of the mix, though. That's a cheap catcher on DK to keep in mind. Brooks Lee, 10 early home runs. The slash line, not really there for a guy who's supposed to hit for average, be low strikeout, put a lot of balls in play. You can see the lack of premium contact that makes the home runs a bit surprising. Realistically, we're looking at him as more a correlated scoring guy. Not ideal ahead of Tristan Gray, Luke Keeschel. Gray's been okay. Keeschel's kind of been scuffling. Either guy is playable. Any one of these 3 guys is playable, but you probably only want one in any given DFS lineup. Joe Ryan, Twins bats, Cards bats, with several good reasons to play him if you just want to hunt for the premium contact against Ryan, especially as one-offs around Jordan Walker, but short stacks, Walker Burleson, on FanDuel, maybe Blaze Jordan. If not, JJ Weatherholt at second base on either side. Herrera on DraftKings. There's a lot to work with there. So they're not that far behind the Twins, even though they're facing Joe Ryan. And then Kyle Leahy, I think, is a nothing option, even at price on DraftKings. Doesn't really look great. If I'm going bargain bin today, I kind of want to at least have some potential for strikeouts, and I just don't think he offers it. Only a few to go. Rays, Angels. It's only 5 o'clock. We're not in any kind of danger time-wise, but I have been talking for quite a while now. 2.5 hours. Yeah, Larry, that is an exceptionally low number for Jordan. I'm going to go in and put my thumb on it as soon as we're done. You'll see it go up slightly. It won't be crazy, though. He's not going up above 10, but he'll creep up above halfway anyway. Rays, 5+ implied total against Sam Alietti here. I love that spot, and I'm hoping that the Rays slip under-owned for a big slate with a lot of go-tos. I think the 5 total there draws the eye, though. I think people probably do get to this. One of the key reasons is getting Junior Caminero with all his upside, 12.94 in the home run model, a 7+% chance from Fangraphs Game Sims to hit a home run here. I love his upside against this weak lefty. So fire away with Ray stacks and just hope for the best as far as the low ownership. You've got premium righties in this lineup in Caminero, in Yandy Diaz, who continues to be just wildly underrated. 12 home runs, 331, 404, 536. He's literally one of the best hitters in baseball. 5,200, 3,800 is honestly a few hundred too cheap on both sides. 26-24 for Austin Slater has found a lot of success in his career against lefties. Not so much this year at 218, 279, 255. He's a correlated scoring piece. If he's in the lineup, Junior should be hitting second, not him, though. Weird that the Rays would make and have made that mistake. Too smart an organization to do that analytically. Ryan Valetti has been pretty good. Another player, blazingly fast. 300, 360, 460, a 357 weighted on base. Same exact thing I was saying about Dunn before applies here. Just a guy who you can probably continue to expect to defy his xWOBA at 309. Maybe he doesn't stay at a 357 actual, but speed, elite speed can beat xWOBA and beat expectation and continue to do so. Jonathan Aranda, 4,635, diminished against your typical lefty, but against this guy, I'm not going to worry, and we're probably going to chase Sammy Aldieri pretty quick here. Ben Williamson at 3,226, a mix and match kind of a piece. Nick Fortes, not a bad, cheap catcher. Righty bat, occasionally can put barrel on ball, doesn't do so with any kind of consistency to talk about, but 1 home run on the season, an adequate slash line for such a cheap catcher where you need to play the position. Just ignore everything over on this side of the board. Going back in time, 5 home runs last year and 242 chances. Nothing really to talk about there. 4 home runs with a low-end slash line and 335 the year before that. 6 in 323. This is the quality that I'm talking about. You get the occasional, very, very cheap home run ball, but against a bad lefty, I'm loosely interested on DraftKings if I'm building a full 5-man Rays. Not a reason to go to him in the world, though, outside of that. Sed Mullins, 3,300, surged for a minute there and looked like maybe he was on his way back to being interesting, but it doesn't look like it. 189, 276, 311, 6 homers, 10 steals. Maybe you get a good counting stats day on a good day to be raised. You also might just not have Sed Mullins in the lineup because because he's left-handed. And then Taylor Wall, switch hitter at the bottom of the lineup. You can expect him, but you can't really expect a lot of production from him. I do think this is a really interesting top end of this lineup, depending on the configuration we get. Let me hit this one more time, see if we get it. That's a lineup I want to have before lock. I would expect, like I said, the under ownership, if nothing, doesn't come with Junior and probably doesn't come with Yandy. Those guys will probably be at least appropriately owned, but maybe some of the guys around the edges with talent, you can get away with some of the correlated scoring. On the Angels side, Shane McClanahan. The one issue with Shane O'Mac is the limited innings. I've got him projected at 5 innings, and he looks pretty good. 84-92. It's just problematic because it doesn't come with a lot of ceiling beyond these numbers. If he finds a couple extra Ks against the Angels team that can feed strikeouts to people, we do get a little bit of bonus, but the idea of getting him to a quality start is kind of limited. Even for 84 on FanDuel, it's not ideal with such a robust pitching board. I've said robust like 7 times on this show. 92 on DraftKings, kind of the same thing, but at least over there, we're only playing for the win. We don't care about the quality start. So probably, despite the higher price, more of a DraftKings guy than a FanDuel guy. 23.9% strikeout, tremendous. 11.7% swinging strike rate. Could give you a little bit more in terms of the strikeout. You could see a little overperformance in the 2.85 ERA versus the 3.79 xFIP, but he's got very, very good stuff. He can get nasty. And part of that potentially just coming out of the short starts. So I like his upside for Ks. I'm just concerned about the limitations that he comes with. I believe 5 innings exactly in 4 starts running now. 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 2/3. Has 1 start on the season where he completed the 6th, and that was against the San Francisco Giants on a day. He struck out 5, walked 0, 5 hits, no runs. Last time out, 4 earned runs against Miami in a disappointing day. Had a 4 earned run day against Baltimore a few starts back. Struck out 6 in that one, but was pitching really well in several of these other 5-inning starts. So just limited. Don't want to expose him to too much strain on that multiple time injured arm. So I get it, but it does diminish our DFS quality a little bit. Some of those right-handed Angels power bats are potentially interesting, even with the just 4-run total here. You can see some quality through the home run model, although all three guys are relegated below the magic number for home runs. The reason I say it, 9.1% barrel allowed. He's limited hitters to only a 1.21% home run rate because he's got great stuff and he misses bats and he's only allowing a 10-degree average launch. There's not a ton there, but these guys can work with the 9.1% barrel. If he happens to make a mistake, they'll find that barrel. So Neto, Trout, Adele, at least on the board. You get a very cheap Trey Mancini. We talked about Mancini and his ridiculous comeback, had not played in the show since 2023. That was after he had already made it all the way back from cancer diagnosis back in like 2020, I want to say. Didn't play through COVID because of COVID and the exposure that the cancer treatments would have caused for him and so on and so forth. Fantastic story. I love that he's back and 10 pretty good plate appearances so far. I like Trey Mancini's ongoing upside. He's a right-handed bat to throw into the mix against McClanahan for very cheap to fill out a stack. Helps with those prices. I'm below 4,000 per man already with just the top four there, 15-8. And then you get Denzer Guzman, who we talked about recently. 10 pretty bad plate appearances in the show, but an interesting bat potentially at 2,100. If we're going to this team already for just wild reasons to attack Shane McClanahan, that brings me down to 3,600 apiece, 17.9 total for a 5-man. They're cheap. Jose Siri, we've talked about several times and succeeded both times in nailing that home run day. Hopefully you guys used it. 2 home runs on the season. 325, 372, 550. Not that he was the home run pick that day, but I specifically called him out that day. And then he went out and hit a home run at extreme low ownership is what I mean. 3,000, 2,400. Still very cheap. Some quality. Wildly erratic player. Expect a 0. Take your upside if he happens to find it. But he has found the barrel pretty consistently in mixed samples over the last few seasons and is capable of homering against the lefty. Logan O'Hoppe, similar things. A lot of barrels over the last few years, really struggling to find any kind of quality or consistency this year. 3 home runs, but if you're looking for a sneaky, good, cheap catcher on DK at 24 against the lefty and then against the bullpen, there's upside in Logan O'Hoppe. Nick Madrigal, just a mix and match infielder. Rays bats. McClanahan because it's only 5 innings. Angels bats, don't think we're using Sammy Aldieri. All right, here's your launching pad of the day. 2 games to go. Neither of these lineups is in. You'll note that the A's are at a curiously high total, 8.32, going up against Zach Agnos, a nothing pitcher who is dead on arrival in this spot. If you use Zach Agnos at 5,000 on DraftKings, you're out of your mind on this slate. 57 on FanDuel, same thing. There's no reason in the universe to go to Zach Agnos. Gage Jump, on the other hand, gonna get us in trouble here. 7,000 on DraftKings. He's 9,000 on FanDuel. Scratch him off your FanDuel list. 7,000 on DraftKings. Kid's been good over 3 starts so far. 18 and a third, 2.45 ERA, but a concerning 4.57 xFIP, 4.48 CRA if we're going to that. Has missed barrels consistently so far in limited action, but a 15.6 degree average launch. And as we saw, a ball that would usually be a fly ball 20 feet in from the wall in the outfield for an out in this ballpark has been consistently traveling for a home run. So that alone could be problematic. But he's been spectacularly good in this, again, 3 starts at limiting premium contact, yet to allow a home run. Very good stuff because he is actually a very high-end prospect for this organization. This is a bad Rockies lineup. They strike out at a 27.1% clip for this projected version of the lineup, 29, 27 the last 2 years. I don't want to lead anybody to it, but I do have to mention that at that price, that's a reasonable enough bargain bin option, even with every other thing about this spot, including the 5.85 opposing implied total. Everything works against Gage Jump here. But I like his talent. And I, across 150 lineups, would absolutely have some Gage Jump shares on DraftKings. Not on FanDuel. In 10 lineups, I don't think you do. If you enter a 20 max, 1, I think is a wild card. You could do it. There are a few other options on that board. This is one of the more talented ones. And like I said, if I'm going bargain bin, give me a little strikeout potential. And you do get that here. Stuff and the physics of how pitches actually travel through space and time is greatly impacted at elevation like this ballpark, like Coors Field. So that could be a problem. He might not have his usual control and command. It might lead to balls just sitting there for the Rockies to tattoo into the stands or just hit lazy fly balls that get out anyway. It's a bad, one of the worst of the year spots for the kid. But that's an interesting price. Rockies bats much more on the board and realistic than anything I just said about Gage Jump. 585 implied total for this bad Rockies team. Hunter Goodman obviously can homer against anybody. He's pulling a 10-7-7 again. There's a reasonable justification to go in and like change these numbers to reflect more of the ridiculous home run quality here. But since it's only been a couple of games, it's difficult to really do. So know that there's more home run potential for any one of these guys in either of these lineups. And that's why they're all going to be crazy highly owned. But Hunter Goodman, one of the leading home run options. It's Goodman, and then basically everybody on the A's not named Jeff McNeil, Max Muncy, and that's it. And then back to the Rockies as far as home run probability goes. And you can see that through the FanGraphs game sims as well. Willie Castro, extremely usable, especially in this ballpark. He's hit 3 home runs. He's got the ability to drive the ball. He could hit a home run here for sure, but you're more looking for Willie to get on base for the more realistic power upside guys. Kyle Karros has found some interesting contact at a cheap price at third base in this ballpark. I would expect if he's hitting second again, gets very, very popular. We'll see if he ends up in the 2 spot. 3 home runs, 2 steals, and 222 pretty bad plate appearances, a 77 WRC plus, but the interesting numbers right there, that 332 X well under the 303 actual. Kyle Karros, actually talented kid, drawing a 13.1% walk rate that give Gage Jump a problem if his stuff isn't working like he normally, if he's expecting the ball to go there and it goes over there, the walks are going to be a problem. TJ Rumfield, 44-28, mix and match piece at worst. This ballpark negates any mix and match. That's a go-to player, but mix and match type talent is what I mean. 273, 54, 430, a 108 WRC plus so far. He's been pretty good. Lacks premium contact upside, but low strikeout, fairly high walk rate, does interesting things here for correlated scoring. Also just puts a lot of balls in play, and as we've seen already this week, just a ball in play could get in the stance. Goodman, like I said, go-to guy. Azil Tovar is rendered more interesting by this ballpark as well. That's a kid with some power in his bat. We've seen it over the past couple of seasons. Just tons and tons of swing and miss. When he's not connecting with the ball with authority, he's probably swinging and missing. Cole Carrig, we talked about yesterday, being an interesting wrinkle. I don't know if he ended up low owned or not, but was on the board and hit his first major league home run. Probably coming in again a little underappreciated. 27-23 was at Coors yesterday. In this Vegas ballpark today, probably gets a little bit more attention for being so cheap and for that home run last night. Maybe you missed being early, but you're probably still beating the crowd to Cole Carrig if you go there. I think he was second base eligible yesterday on FanDuel, wasn't he? Outfield only on either side today. Troy Johnston at 47 at 29. Solid slash line over 241 plate appearances. Interesting enough bat to go to in this park. Braxton Fulford, Chad Stevens, because everybody's on the board in this one. Neither of those guys has been good in limited samples so far this year. Last year, neither guy was good in 120 for one of them and 14 for the other. I forget which order they were in. Fulford has more experience. Neither one of those guys is overly appealing, but either one of them is in play, and they're both cheap to help with any pricing concerns. Not that you have them, because everybody in the Rockies lineup is, at worst, affordable. Rocks are 3 by projection, 1 by value on FanDuel, 2 by projection, 1 by value on DraftKings. They are, again, 11 by home run total, which is probably a little bit low, but it's not exactly a lineup overloaded with robust home run hitters. There's robust again. Word of the day. Scream real loud. The Athletics is going to be the talking point of the day on every single show across the industry. They're leading, I guarantee everybody, stacks and probability boards, and if they're not, don't pay for that site anymore. Brent Rooker at 45-31, maybe slips a little bit in popularity compared to what he ought to be against Zach Agnos, but I think everybody knows that you would want to use Brent Rooker here. 31-45, the most affordable upside piece of upside pieces. 10 home runs, a bad slash line, but as I keep on saying, he's just way too smart not to figure this out, and he's been finding the barrel, if nothing else, which is all you really need. Carlos Cortez is cheap at 43-28, considering how good he's been this year. Barrels. Hard hit rate is not great. Barrel rate is a little above average or around the average, but he's hit 6 home runs. He's found a great slash line. He's drawing the walk at 11.5, and he doesn't strike out this year, so that's really interesting. 147 WRC plus to throw against this pitcher. I expect he gets extremely popular. Shea Langoliers at 58 at 39. Not unfairly priced for this ballpark. Tyler Soderstrom at 5 at 33, 11 homers on the board, and 275 chances, a 335 on base, creating runs at a 117 clip. And then Kurt's just one of the best bats in baseball. 15 home runs, a 438 on base. He could hit, what's the record? 5? I'm not going to actually say in public that he could hit 5 home runs today. I don't mean it, but I mean, he could have a very, very big fantasy day. He's going to be the most popular player, even at those prices. Bolte at 36 at 27. Interesting name to keep in mind as we slip down the lineup. He's nice and cheap. He hasn't done a ton in the show yet. He did hit a home run finally, 296, 373, 83, 5 stolen bases. The mix is supposed to be regular power and some stolen base upside. So far, problematic strikeout rate against a moderate walk rate. 274 xWOB is a concern under the 340 actual, but you got to give him more time to figure it out. 51.9% hard hit rate's interesting, and he's cheap in this lineup. Geloff for 48 for 3,000, former 2020 guy, having an okay year. 8 homers on the board, 266, 314, 462. Why not Zach Geloff? 4,800, the price kind of noticed on DraftKings. 3,000, arguably still a little cheap on FanDuel. Again, probably gets popular considering the conditions. Jeff McNeil, mix and match slap hitter type, but even he could hit a home run. We did see a weird power outburst from Jeff McNeil for a minute last year. He hit, 12 home runs? Yeah, a dozen home runs in 462 chances. They came in a hurry, and then it went away. But wouldn't shock me if the lefty put one in the seats today. And then this Max Muncy, I forgot to change the stats board again, hasn't been particularly good, but the ballpark benefits everybody, and probably going to be one of the lower-owned days. 4,000 I don't love, but at least it's at third base. 28, similar price on FanDuel. A's bats, Rockies bats, top 2 options on the board. Gauge jump on DraftKings. Again, it's not good. It's not likely. It's a total dart throw, but he's talented enough to make it work. No, Zach Agnos. Don't do it. Last game up, thankfully, because we're almost 3 hours in. Oh, did they change the Rockies pitcher? Sean Sullivan, says Meach. Not that that's going to lead us to Sean Sullivan or take us away from the Athletics. How about that? All right, so that's a little change. High-rated prospect. This is why would they do this to this kid? I mean, I know he's going to pitch most of his life in Coors Field, but why the fuck would you debut this kid in this ballpark? Keep an eye out also from this projected lineup because he's not on their 40-man even. This is a weird decision. He's not on their 40-man, so they're going to have to let somebody go or figure something out there. So you might lose one of these projected hitters. Who knows? That is a bizarre decision. All right. Hang on. Is he on either slate? He's not available on either slate. Nobody expected that because, like I said, it's a stupid decision, and he wasn't even on their 40-man. What a mismanaged baseball team. Jesus Christ. Not Brett Sullivan. Former Rocky Brett Sullivan. There are 2 Sean Sullivans in the minors. One pitches for Pittsburgh, the one that we're talking about. So far this year, a 5.60 ERA and a 5.45 xFIP, but that's pitching in PCL. So you got to discount it. It's essentially the same as pitching in this park. This is a PCL park, in fact. Actually, he's probably used to pitching in this park now that I'm thinking about it. So maybe that negates some of my anger about debuting him here. He's not available anyway, and he's pitched poorly in the PCL. So all things just lead back to A's. There's no reason to go away from them. He's not likely to do anything that Zach Agnos might not have done. 20.2% strikeout rate in the PCL. He struck out 24.2% in a more fair AA sample. 18 starts, 97 innings. The quality was on display there a little bit. 3.14 ERA, 3.39 xFIP is what the talent is. But PCL, Coors Field, this ballpark are going to take all of that away for him in an ongoing sense. So poor kid. No reason in the world to go away from A's, and Sean Sullivan going to make the start, but not available for us for DFS, and you wouldn't want him anyway. Now we get to the bargain bin pitcher I actually wanted to talk about. hours and hours later. Talked about Javier Assad all the way at the top of the show. 6,000 on DK, 66 on FanDuel. If I'm going to the bargain bin on either site, it's one of the more appealing guys and probably the most realistic guy. Not that I think Javier Assad is actually all that good. 14.7% strikeout rate in 3 starts, 32 and a third so far this year. He doesn't really lose much to walk. Pitched to a 4.73 ERA with similar xFIP and Sierra numbers. Why do we like him? He's been, well, moderately effective from time to time in years past. I don't think we're going to find any good stats in the season-long sense. 19.4% strikeout rate over a full season of starts in 29 outings was the best I think he ever was. 20.9, slight uptick over that the year before in only 10 starts. But this is a guy who just breaks off those weird DFS days where he goes out, pitches for quality, finds a couple strikeouts along the way, and then just compiles some scoring through just getting outs and getting through innings. For example, as I said at the beginning of the show, last time out was in bulk relief against this Giants team at Wrigley, better hitting conditions, 6 1/3, one hit 21 Giants rather, 5 strikeouts and a walk. That is a phenomenal DFS day at these prices in a full start because he would qualify for the win, qualify for the quality start if the Cubbies do their thing. The Giants are pulling a 4.44 implied total against. Don't be surprised if that play goes sideways, but I think that's a super reasonable bargain bin option if you're just trying to get to a unique setup of very cheap pitcher, high-end bats on FanDuel, interesting enough cheapo SP2 on DK that maybe you go like, come on, why is this not responding? Come on. We're at the end of the show. I need to stop talking. Again, Assad projects down here, right? So take that into account with everything I'm saying. But like that and say Bybee for 73 in also not a safe spot and not projected at the top of the board, but also not dramatically offset from anybody not named Mizorowski. That's a really cheap 66.50 a piece, 13.3 total for those two pitchers. That's going to afford you the ability to get to some unique bat combinations. So that's exactly what we're talking about. Going back to that, should I fade the A's question? If you can get to something unique like that, where you're 2 combined lower owned bargain pitchers that do provide a little bit of potential, you need some of the other guys to go sideways, no doubt about it. And you have to drill the bats exactly. But that gets you 2 more unique constructions, even if you go to the go-to teams. And then if you work in like, one of those potentially lower owned mid-4s type totals spots as your second stack, great option. But again, don't be shocked if the Giants just ruin all of that with 5 or 6 runs. They're not a good team. They're not a go-to team. They projected a 4.44 implied total, which is not one of the more high-end marks on this slate. I almost said it again. There is usability here. There's a lot of underperformance going on here, but they're not a good team. The Cubbies are the better offense here. They're at the lower total, 4.15. The thing about that is they're all, like Yordan Alvarez, limited by Landon Roop. Just keeps the ball down, doesn't allow barrels, induces extreme degrees of weak and medium contact. This is the same thing that Luis Ravila in a smaller sample is doing to the Astros. It just takes some of the home run probability away. Last season, he did similar things. 36.5% hard hit rate is spectacular. Kept to a 9.8 degree average launch, just 2.31% home runs. Average strikeout rate, too high a walk rate, 3.80 ERA, but a 4.11 xFIP, 4.36 Sierra, predictive of this year's 4+ ERA. But that goes the other way this season. He's actually been pitching better than that 4.0 ERA mark. He's also finding a little uptick in strikeout, 26.3 up from 21.4 last year, while sacrificing a minimal amount of walks. That's not bad. Uptick in swinging strikes, 9.8 up to 10.2. It's minimal, but it's finding some results. So Roop, don't be shocked if he at least knocks the Cubs down. And it's a very pitcher-friendly park. So I'm not rushing to get Cubs into my lineups either. PCA, if he's leading off, 51.37. We've talked about the surge in quality out of him, 338 on base, up to a 120 WRC plus after scuffling through the beginning first 2 months of the season. Tremendous option, fully priced, though, in a pitcher-friendly park. Alex Bregman at 42.29, 6 home runs. And we're just looking for line drives, extra base hits, low strikeout, bunch of balls in play. Bregman's still a top name on the list, and his price keeps coming down at a weak third base. Michael Busch, 47.31, 7 home runs. Great on base percentage, push walk up decently, strikeout right around where it was last year, has lost frequency of hard hits, but and a decent amount of the barrel that we saw last year. But that barrel is aligned to 2024. Maybe we see it float back up to like 14-ish%, which would surge home runs and output in general a little bit. But he's been better than that line would indicate. 348 WOBA, 349 X, 123 WRC plus. It's still a very good player. Ian Happ, 43.36. Cheap on DraftKings, fairly priced on FanDuel for the quality, on base all the time. Some power in that bat for the switch hitter. Seiya Suzuki at 45,300. Nice and cheap on both sides for his quality. 10 home runs at 332 on base with more to give in that department. Excellent option if you're going Cubs. But again, Roop is going to take the home runs down a notch. This ballpark is going to do that. This is not a great spot to be the Cubs. Nico Horner. If we're considering those things and we're just looking for sequencing and balls in play, that puts Nico even more on the board because that's the name of his game. Right now, he's not having a great year after they extended him. 247, 328, 347, 4 home runs, 12 stolen bases, but it's a player to expect a lot from in a normalization. 336 XWOBA would tell you that under the 306 actual. Moises Ballesteros has tons of power for a $3,300 catcher on DraftKings, usable on FanDuel at the cheap price. Miguel Amaya, kind of a mix and match guy. Dansby Swanson, struggling this season, but a guy I still have faith in, and he's cheap and low owned at the shortstop position. 7 homers, some decent counting stat days, 37 runs scored is, a healthy total. So even though he's struggling, he is still providing some DFS days. Better for us than he's been for the Cubs. On the Giants end, Casey Schmidt having a great year, 276, 307, 516, 15 homers, a 240 ISO, a 348 XWOBA lurking under that 353 actual, 127 WRC plus, tons of good batted ball events. Casey Schmidt has just been good. Low strikeout, very low walk, so a lot of balls in play. DraftKings better price, FanDuel, 4 positions. Rafi Devers is super cheap at 4,300. 9 home runs. We know he's been struggling. 307 WOBA and a concerning 292 X that makes it questionable about how much of his talent he actually reclaims in an ongoing sense. I like him to find it. Part of that low-end XWOBA is the reduced walk rate at 7.5%. That's half of who he was last year. 9.9% barrel, 50% hard hit. Just look at it as a home run or bust against Javier Assad, who does induce, this year, not so far. 50% hard hit, 90.9 miles an hour of exit velo, has missed the barrel, but in years past has been good at inducing weak and medium contact. Part of his game has been limiting home run power. It's not, spectacular in those regards, but he is below our our threshold of being bad. But Devers on the board for power for sure. Luis Arias puts a few balls in play, gets on base, correlated scoring. Willie Adames, 11 home runs, otherwise really lackluster slash line. 9.5% barrel is his one saving grace, 43.4% hard hit. Jung-Hoo Lee, playable outfielder if you're looking for contact, if you're looking for sequencing, which works in this ballpark. 338, 372, 457. Him and Luis Arias are going back and forth for batting title contention if either of them qualify. Yeah, I think they both are. Bryce Eldridge at 33, 3,000, 4 home runs already in 109 plate appearances. That's just Bryce Eldridge being Bryce Eldridge. This kid is good. He's one of the top power rating prospects in baseball. Excellent slash line so far to go with that. 9.9% barrel with a 56.3% hard hit. He's just hitting the ground running. There's no real reason to discount any of what he's done. This is similar to minor league. Against Javier Assad, tons of upside. And he's cheap. Matty Chapman at 36, 3,000, maybe finding a little bit up to 262, 345, 409 in an awful hurry. 6 home runs, putting together a interesting surge here. Up to 335 actual WOBA, but a 296X is kind of lingering in danger department. 115 WRC plus on the year, though, after really struggling for a minute. Matty, let's see where Matty's at. The thing that's still concerning, and the reason the XWOBA is so low, is the premium contact has been completely abandoned. He's finding the success, and he's found more of that. I don't have the recent stretch numbers for barrels and hard hits, but just looking since May 15th, 5 of those home runs, 330, 417, 593 slash line, more to the point, a 430 weighted on base, but an excellent 360 XWOBA under the surface, 179 WRC plus. That's Matt Chapman getting back to being Matt Chapman. Prior to that run, come on. He had been, before May 14th, or going into May 15th, he had been at 224, 302, 304 for the season with a 76 WRC plus and just the 1 home run. So there were a lot of concerns going on there. Oh, you know what? I can actually get. I forgot they have the StatCast board for the game log now. over this run since May 15th, 9% barrels, 44.9% hard hit, trending upward, 89.7 mile an hour average exit velo, 112 max exit velocity mark with $16 batted ball events at least over 100 miles an hour, and several of them into the 110, 112 range. That's a very good hitter, just kind of reclaiming his talent to throw at Aviad Assad here. So keep Matty Chapman in mind because sites haven't noticed. 36, 3,000. Nice and cheap. Daniel Susac and Drew Gilbert, just kind of mixers, but Susac's been pretty good over 91 plate appearances. Cheap catcher on the board on DraftKings. Less necessary on your FanDuel slate. Drew Gilbert hasn't been great outside of those 3 home runs in 146 this year. Was pretty awful last year in 109, and that's about all we have. So not really a go-to option to round out the show. I forgot to do these in reverse order today. Whew, boy. That's your slate, gang. Good luck. Oh, this goes... I guess it's got to be Giants bats, Aviad Assad, but Assad's an interesting bargain bin dart throw. Cubs bats, Landon Roop. Well, I don't really expect an upside day for Roop. That's the problem. But it might actually be Roop above the Cubs. Doesn't matter either way. There's your pitching board one last time. Here's your stacks board one last time. Some of these things will change somewhat, like Gage Jump is no longer the 6th projected pitcher. That was a mistake earlier in the day. We'll probably goose the Astros for a little bit more than the 26th ranked power number, but it is very realistic that Luis Avila could take away the power. Freeze frame here. There's your rules for the home run picks contest. You got to come back after the show. Leave it in a comment. Only get one. There's the rules. There's your leaderboard so far. Win yourself a free month of Rotoscouts. First to 5 wins so far. Loyalty Chisel in the lead with 2. Only one other home run correctly picked home run, whatever. Rooker to the IL, Jacob Wilson activated. Thanks, House. Take Rooker out of your mix. Obviously, that's a ding to the Athletics upside, but they've got monster quality in that lineup. Jacob Wilson, nice activation there, mostly hit tool focused, but that gives him another correlated scoring piece and a reasonable way to fill out shortstop that might not get as popular as some other guys for the A's today. So good option to consider there, and that's a great way to end the show. Good luck out there tonight, gang. Somebody go win something. Look out for some key updates coming through in the next little bit. 5:30 on your clock right now, so no problems. 3-hour show for a Friday to close out the week. Love it. Get into our home run picks contest. Take advantage of those free weeks. Still a few of them left. Free first week on a weekly. Promo code is Cubs Win. All one word, capital C, capital W. Celebrate our guy Cubs in his recent 5-figure runs and great finishes on FanDuel consistently multiple times a week. It's killing me. My lineups aren't doing as well. Got to talk to him about what he's doing out there. But celebrate Cubs Win. Celebrate some of the other recent 5-figure wins that the community has had, and go win yourself 5 figures with free projections. There's your promo code scrolling across the bottom of the screen. Free first week on a weekly, monthly, quarterly plans, all available under $1 a day under normal circumstances. Gets you access to everything that hits that website. No per sport nonsense. One last time, gang. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share the results when you do at Rotoscouts on Twitter or in Premium Discord. And we will see you for a Monday show in a few days. Projections through the weekend like usual. Let's go Knicks. Later, gang.